Keeping you informed, KUAM News brings you Banking 671, brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, and Coast 360 Federal Credit Union. Together, we thrive.
KUAM News COVID-19 Takeover on I-94 FM is presented locally by Ambrose Inc.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
With the new challenges we're all facing, First Hawaiian Bank wants to make sure you have access to your financial world. With FHB Online and our mobile app, we hope to make banking the least of your worries. Visit fhb.com/digital.
Be healthy. Be informed with ITD.
Now is not the time for us versus them.
GMH Administrator Lillian.
University of Guam, Dean of Nursing, Margaret.
There is light at the end of the tunnel.
Help is on the way from a marine medical.
Out in the public, where all are more exposed.
585 have tested positive.
Nothing wrong with a little JD Crush. It's never too early for JD Crush in the morning. You know, funny story I was sharing with Bree, you guys. In case you didn't know, this is an old country remake called Mama Tried. I want to say Merle Haggard, I think I'm right, but it's like, I turned 21 in prison doing life without parole, Mama Tried. But it's funny because, of course, I grew up with this one, so later on when I was grown and I heard the original, I was like, this sucker stole this from J.D. Crutch. Hold on a minute. Saki alert. Hey, 618, good morning on you. It is Monday. Another day, another containing COVID broadcast multimedia extravaganza for you guys at 618. And it's all proudly brought to you by Cowboy Enterprises, IT&E, Ambrose Inc., Coast 360, and the Bank of Guam. Good morning, Sabrina.
Good morning.
How was your weekend?
It was good.
It was
Slept
fast.
a lot.
You slept a lot, so you recharged.
No, I could probably sleep some more.
Right. I feel like I slept. I did get some rest this weekend, but it brought me back to -5. So here we are. You know, a lot of news for you guys today. There's a lot of partial reopenings in the government of Guam, so we're going to be talking about that this morning. Also, we've got the Labor Director, Dave De La Sola, on with an update. And Mary Rhodes coming back on the show to talk about the Theodore Roosevelt. And, you know, we had her on last week. Unfortunately, there's so much on her plate that we didn't even get to the Roosevelt. And there's been some new developments, of course, with the ship. And also, we have the Executive Director of the Guam Election Commission, Maria Pangilinan. There's a special election coming up, and there's also a regular election that's probably going to be special because of the COVID, and that's also in the way. Speaker Tina Munia Barnes, our Health, Tourism, and Justice Oversight, Senator Therese Terlahi. Also, we hear from Major Tom for the Salvation Army and the Executive Director of the Mayor's Council of Guam, Angel Sablan, and you guys. 637-0094, that's our number. Let's do it. Break fluid, 620, as we always do. Let's start the day with a dive into the COVID-19 headlines from the KUAM News team. Good morning, Sabrina Solis Matanani.
Hafaday and good morning, everyone. No tests were run on Sunday by Public Health, but on Saturday, only 4 tests were ran and 0 tested positive. The number of COVID-confirmed cases on Guam remains at 154, with 5 deaths and 126 recoveries. There are 2 new COVID-19 cases in the meantime in the CNMI, according to a Facebook post by Commonwealth Healthcare Corporation. According to the CNMI Office of the Governor, the 2 new cases are a 31-year-old male and 22-year-old females who are both asymptomatic and contact of previous COVID-19 cases residing in the CNMI. They are both isolated at the Kanoa Resort facility. The CNMI now has a total of 21 confirmed COVID-19 cases with 9 active, 12 recoveries, and 2 deaths. Back to Guam, expanded testing meanwhile continues this week with public health planning to test workers living in temporary workforce housing, people who are unsheltered or homeless, residents at the Gura public and elderly housing sites in Talafofo, and household contacts of confirmed cases. Expanded testing of frontline workers is also ongoing. The governor has extended the deadline to apply for her local disaster aid program. To date, 1,200 checks have been cut, totaling $750,000. Due to demand, the governor signed an executive order extending application period to June 12th. Programan Salapi Adzudani Tatao is being paid for by $20 million from the more than $118 million in CARES Act funding. Those who are already enrolled in the SNAP or Medicaid programs do not need to apply. You are automatically eligible. Those who are with a certain threshold of the national poverty level can apply on Public Health's website. The local assistance checks range from $300 to $1,200. Social Security beneficiaries in Guam can expect their economic impact payments, also known as federal economic stimulus payments, in early June. That's the word from the Social Security Administration. In a news release, the SSA said that in general, the tax authority in each territory, not the IRS, will pay the EIP to eligible residents based on information the IRS will provide to the territories. Revenue Tax Barragada's office will be open for business today, but services will be limited. For example, driver's license, Guam ID, and certain business licenses services will not be available at DRT's main office in Barragada, but they will be available at the Agani Shopping Center satellite office only. Until further notice, DRT's main office in Barragada will be open Monday through Friday, excluding GovGuam holidays, from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. for individuals with disabilities, senior citizens, and military veterans only. Then from 9:30 a.m. to 5 p.m., services for the general public will be available, and some services are by appointment only. For more information, call 311. Golf is back, so is tennis, scuba diving, and animal grooming. Public Health has authorized the reopening of these activities, which went into effect yesterday. Individuals and businesses must still adhere to social distancing guidelines as previously outlined by Public Health. In response to Senator Joe San Augustine's inquiry on the applicability of the Department of Administration's double pay provision for essential workers during the current state of during the current state of emergency, Attorney General Levin Camacho breaks down his opinion. Adriana Catero reports.
For a more blanket opinion.
As Attorney General Levin Camacho explains, they do not have enough facts, and it will all depend on agency directors' determination on specific circumstances of the agency and the status of that facility. That's according to the language of Rule 8406 of the Department of Administration's Personnel Rules and Regulations, requiring the government of Guam to pay essential employees double pay.
And in looking at the language, we identified that there are a minimum of 3 criteria that need to be met before any employee would be eligible for double pay.
The 3 elements include the first, to declare a state of emergency, which AG Camacho says that this was clearly met in March. As for the 2 other elements, that's where the line becomes blurry and could potentially lead to far more litigation.
The 2 more complicated criteria would be whether an employee's facility is closed. And as we pointed out, there were 3 categories of government of Guam agencies: those that were deemed non-essential and closed, those that were deemed close to the public but open for operations, and those that were fully operational and open to the public. The last criteria would be whether or not, or the person was required, the status of the employee, or whether they were required to remain on duty in order to perform essential services.
AG Camacho points out that the governor's executive order called for frontliners to remain on work status and relied on the agency director's authority in identifying employees required to report to work and provide a service.
So this is not a very clear-cut thing. Everyone's going to have to go through and determine on an agency by agency level whether or not they could potentially be entitled to either double pay or compensatory time.
AG Camacho adds that this law was never written to cover pandemic responses, but rather in instances of natural disasters, and the legislature ultimately has the ability to set compensation pay.
This is just something new, so we cannot put a square peg in a round hole, and that's what they're trying to do with this existing rule. And as we pointed out, there are very tough policy decisions that our elected or other elected officials have to make. Our role has been to decide who is able to be paid under Rule 8406 and not who should be paid. That's a policy decision that the legislature needs to make.
You can view the AG's press conference streaming live on our Facebook and YouTube page. Reporting for Guam's News Network, I'm Adriana Cotero.
New contracts have been signed and awarded by the General Services Agency for Hotel Santa Fe and Wyndham Garden to serve as quarantine facilities for all incoming travelers. Individuals currently being quarantined at the Pacific Star will be transferred to the new quarantine facilities starting today. All inbound passengers to Guam will still be subject to mandatory quarantine for 14 days. The only exemption are for passengers with a diagnostic specimen test 72 hours prior to arrival and a certified document from a medical provider attesting the results are negative. Additionally, directors, deputy directors, and GovGuam employees that were serving at the isolation quarantine facilities will be returning to their agencies. The Guam National Guard will now be assuming operations. KUAM has confirmed the new contracts were signed by Civil Defense Administrator Charles Esteves and followed protocols for emergency procurement. As reported, the previous agreements for quarantine isolation facilities with the local government went unsigned by Esteves, Attorney General Levin Camacho, Certifying Officer Marie Kenga, BBMR Director Lester Carlson, and Governor Lulian Guerrero. KUAM is waiting for copies of the new contracts for Santa Fe and Wyndham Garden. 5 sailors who returned on board the USS Theodore Roosevelt retested positive and were immediately removed from the ship. According to a statement from Navy spokesman Commander Myers Vasquez, the 5 sailors developed influenza-like illness symptoms and executed their personal responsibility by reporting to medical for evaluation. They were placed back in isolation, their close contacts were mapped, and they are receiving the required medical care. He said while they were on board, the 5 TR sailors self-monitored and adhered to the strict social distancing protocols established by the Navy. These protocols resulted in a small number of close contacts were also removed from the ship, quarantined, and tested. Vasquez said the Navy continues to exceed CDC and COVID task force guidelines, and we continue to provide valuable data to help our nation fight this virus. The nuclear carrier Roosevelt has been in Guam since March 27th. It came into port after a coronavirus outbreak aboard the vessel while it was at sea. In national news, today the FDA granted emergency authorization for the first testing kit that lets people take a nasal sample at home. It's made by Austin, Texas-based Everlywell, but they are not alone in this race, as Imtiaz Tiab reports.
In laboratories around the world, the race is on for a rapid, low-cost, and most crucially, highly accurate coronavirus test. Dozens are already on the market or in the works. But concerns over accuracy continues to be a dark cloud hanging over the quick-use diagnostics. Here at the British medical startup Sense Biodetection, they believe they've achieved just that, a rapid COVID-19 test with results in under 10 minutes. It's the brainchild of molecular biologist Dr. Harry Lamble.
We use what's called a molecular chemistry. So we're targeting the genetic material of the virus, and we're amplifying it many millions of fold in order to be able to detect it.
Lamble expects the diagnostic to receive FDA approval in a few months and has partnered with the Wisconsin-based medical manufacturers Philip Medisize to produce their product as cheaply as a home pregnancy test.
So, how does it work? Well, you take a sample from inside your nostril, dip it into this chemical solution, use a pipette, draw the liquid out, pour the fluid in here, switch it on, and you're done.
At the White House, which is suffering from its own coronavirus outbreak,
It's a great test.
President Trump has given a ringing endorsement to Abbott Laboratories' rapid COVID-19 test. But the FDA is warning preliminary research has identified potential problems with Abbott's 15-minute diagnostic, including false negatives. Whatever the case, it further complicates the already complex quest for a quick, affordable, and accurate coronavirus test. Imtiaz Taib, CBS News, Cambridgeshire, England.
In your Banking 671 report, several local businesses and government agencies have joined forces to launch Going Online Together, GOT. It is a collaboration aimed at transforming consumer behavior by promoting the use of online and digital solutions during this global pandemic. Now more than ever, online banking and payment platforms have become instrumental in continuing services during this time and are being highlighted in business and government plans to protect our communities and workers on the front line. Bank of Guam CEO Joaquin Cook says it is our hope that through sharing resources, leveraging various platforms, and reaching out to each of our individual customer segments, we will be able to create a new norm through awareness, education, and instruction, one that is easy, safe, and secure. Coast 360 President and CEO Hener Delakina Minwal says they stand alongside GOT partners as we all aim for the same thing, a safer community with more awareness and education of alternate transaction channels for our consumers. As we fight this pandemic together, we lean on each other with a unified message of solutions that aren't only convenient, but just as safe and secure. And that is your Banking 671 report, sponsored by Bank of Guam and Coast 360.
Okay, good morning. Just a bunch of comments coming down, by the way, on our KUM News Facebook Live feed. Chris and Bree, are you able to find out why Reverend Tax never called the people who are missing a copy of their stimulus check and why they only realize that they're missing a copy of her? I don't know. I'm seeing some of this. We'll find out, but I don't know if they know anybody's stimulus check is missing yet because they're still sending them out.
Yeah.
Mine's missing.
Mine too.
Yeah, we like to file a report. 6:32, containing COVID. Again, there are just so many ways to catch the show right here on the radio. 93.9 KAUAM FM, Hagatni, Guam. It's Guam's favorite. There's also an audio stream, Docomo Channel 10. We're streaming live at KUAM.com and the KUAM News app. And 8 o'clock, we go to KUAM TV 11. And last but not least, all of our amazing viewers, likers, questioners, commenters on our KUAM News Facebook Live feed. Just know it's an award-winning social media thing. Good morning, 6:32. We'll start the week off here. A lot of people asking about the POO and the FPUC, the unemployment, of course, benefits of the Department of Labor. So let's get Labor Director Dave Della Sola onto the show for our weekly update. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Sabrina.
Good morning.
We just want to give you the floor and just give us a status on the FPUC and the POO, if you can, sir.
Sure. The software module is coming along fine. We're tightening up the inputting of the claims part is about 90% done. The part that the latter part, which does the payments, weekly certification, and the new requirements that we recently found that we need to put into it, which is the save module, which USDOL just let us know that it's needed. So we've been trying to get that account. SAVE is a systematic alien verification for entitlement program or system. It incorporates into the program, and what that does, it tells you automatically if any aliens working are they're legally and are entitled to get federal assistance. So it's a safeguard and increases the program's integrity. This is a system that USDOL is assisting us in getting an account, and so that we can give it to the software vendor, and then they can incorporate that into the account. And that and the earnings disregard, which we found out a week or so ago, that's also being built in. So I think we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel if we don't get any more requirements from USDOL. Tomorrow we have a additional training on the appeals and the adjudication process of the claims, and we hope that nothing new will come out from there. You have to understand that this is a new program. We're finding out new requirements as they are vetting it out and they are training us. So I'm hoping that we can get this system up and going. We have a meeting this morning with the programmers, and we're going to get a good update on where we're at and what options we have for rolling out this software program so we can start taking claims.
Dave, you said seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. I guess the big question is, how long is the tunnel?
Depends walking or you're driving, I guess. I think what we're going to might do is release the software which will maybe take claims. We're going to talk about that this morning. We have a 8:30 call in, and we're going to see what options are. Only because there are the two pieces, like I said, that save module, and then also the I forgot the vendor who's going to be doing the check writing and all that kind of stuff. All those procurements aren't complete yet. GSA is with that, following procurement procedures, and whoever gets awarded that portion has to put in the elements for the CSV file, which cuts your checks and makes your EFTs, your electronic funds transfer. So I'll know better. I think I'll have a good feeling after today on what kind of timelines we might be able to get out for you.
You talked about procurement and contracts. You couldn't just go the Title 10 superpower route and bypass everything?
I know they are wherever we could, but certain procurements we have to that aren't. So believe me, I'm frustrated at the time, but you have to. Last thing I want to do is get on the media by saying that I violated some kind of procurement procedures or anything like that. They tend not to be very kind to you. I don't know why.
But just to go back,
that's a double-edged sword. So you've got to follow procedures. It takes more time, and that's why they're there. So that when you follow procedures, then everybody's saying, well, how come you're not getting it out fast enough? So you can't win or lose either way you go.
Well, so, it didn't take that long for civil defense to go through the proper route and make a quick turnaround to get these new quarantine facilities. But that's a whole nother subject. Just wanted to go back to what you were talking about with the SAVE module. Now, is that these are new requirements that you just received word from USDOL? Is that going to
really a module? It's a system that you incorporate into the program.
Right. Is that going to delay?
Go ahead.
Is that going to delay the initial target to get the employee module up or system?
Yeah, because that attaches to the claims form, so that when somebody that maybe is from Taiwan or from Korea, wherever is working here, they have a green card. We have to figure out if that person is, number one, legal to work on Guam, and number two, is eligible for federal assistance. And you can just imagine if I didn't have that, which I didn't think of at the time, this is all new, that you trying to, the fraud that would get in by all these people that are putting in that aren't supposed to be working here, that are maybe on tourist visas, that are here illegally working, and then they file for assistance.
So non-U.S. citizens are eligible for these programs?
Legal aliens are. And the typical one, but that doesn't go on the SAVE, of course, is all Micronesians. But I don't believe that they need to go on to that SAVE type of system. Most of these are the Taiwans, the Japanese, the Koreans that are here living, that are working, but they're not U.S. citizens.
Okay.
How are we looking on the...
This is something, like I said, is a requirement from USDOL to be put on the system, and apparently it's a requirement nationwide. It's just that it's an account that we've applied for a week ago, and they are assisting us to try to get it expedited so that we can attach it.
Where are we at with the application, Dave?
The application is pretty much done.
So we're just waiting.
I have a paper one that's called a pre-app, and that's another thing that we're going to go over with the software vendor to see how much it aligns, and we're going to decide on what we're going to do with that, whether we release it and use it and accept it, or do we just leave it out there as a guide for you to organize your information. So everything is, like I said, it's coming so close. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's just that now we've got to sit down and start tweaking it and finalizing it, make some decisions based on the programs, and hope that Tuesday and Wednesday's training with USDOL doesn't throw in some more things that would delay anymore. I don't think it will. I think that we put in place everything that is necessary for the program, and now we're just vetting, running through the program. I've gone through the program, even though it's still being tweaked. Just it's a working model, and we've made it as simple as possible. And I think for a complicated program, you can't get it any simpler than what it is, considering that it is an existing model that we took off from Pennsylvania, and we're basically just whittling it down, and then changing it around to make it simpler and fitting Guam's unique needs, because it being a territory and different from the state.
Right. You know, obviously everybody wants to know, like, when do you think?
Yes, believe me, nobody.
People are going to be able to start applying.
Yeah. So I'm hoping this week we can get some concrete timeline for you.
And in the meantime,
Very soon.
Okay. And in the meantime, what should people do to prepare? I know you guys were talking about standing up a call center or some kind of
center. Yes. Yep. Yes, that's pretty much already been completed and ready to go. Initially, we're going to use that center for a training center.
Right.
I've been reaching out. I think for the last week, I've been calling out businesses and hotels and restaurants to stand up like a mini processing centers for their employees and maybe their families or whatever. And I'm starting to get good response. SHRM, president, has said that they want to help too. So what we're going to do is use the center initially to train those HR people, those managers of different businesses, to give them a quick run through the system so that they can in turn help their employees apply online and get a good solid application in.
Dave, I know that you guys have a bunch of people detailed over to Department of Labor, just because I call around to different agencies sending FOIAs and whatnot, and a couple of them, they're saying, oh, well, so-and-so is detailed over to Labor. So you guys do have a bunch of different people there assisting the rollout of this effort, because I don't want people to think that it's just Dave and Hannah Cho over there.
No, there's only 3 of us that are running. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, we've sat down with the governor's office and some of the ASOs, and we hand selected I'm trying to think, like maybe 40, 50 of some of the talent all through GovGuam, so that they can be initially trained, and they'll be used to train the trainers. The governor was nice enough to write the letters to all the agencies, so I got good response in their detail assignments. And yes, they are unbelievably talented people, and they're picking it up. They're taking it seriously. They understand the magnitude of the job that we have at hand, and they're at every one of our trainings. They do Zoom, and when this program is up, they'll go over there too and start learning the system inside and out. And we'll also be using them for the adjudication side and the appeal side, and basically we're going to be pulling more GovGuam employees in to assist as needed, and they will train them up too.
What about your deputy director? Is he back working for you? Because I know he was doing work over at the quarantine hotel.
Yes, when we opened up, he came back, and he's basically running the department for me while I'm doing the PUA program.
Do you know if there's going to be any effort to recognize the efforts of the quarantine shepherds?
Man, I think they should be. I mean, I know they're getting beaten up by you guys about who's there and what's there, but when they first opened up, we made a call out to all our employees, and every director did, and nobody wanted to go there.
Right.
I mean, they all, and I can understand who, most of them had families, most of them had their grandparents or kids, and none of them wanted to go to take the chance of the quarantine. It had nothing to do with money. Just nobody wanted to expose themselves. So initially,
Right, so are frontliners, doctors, nurses, firefighters, police officers. They risk their lives every day, too.
Yeah.
Okay, Dave.
Yes, they do. So, yeah, I even forgot what your question was. Sorry.
I was
the deputy's back on the job today.
Yes, he's on the job, and he's running the department and taking care of the day-to-day operations and getting the AJC stood back up again and making sure that we have the employees are safe distancing and putting those measures in place. So I have him doing the key role so that I can concentrate on this program.
Hey, have you guys got any complaints from any of these nurses, or whether there's a bunch of issues with them getting the overtime pay and the differential pay and the hazard pay? So on the enforcement end of DOL, do you guys have anybody in the office to entertain those kind of things?
Yeah, we have. They're operating full force, and as usual, I'm not in the day-to-day, so I don't know. I know they are entertaining calls, and there's always some issues with pay. It never goes away. Exactly that to answer that question, I don't know off the top of my head, since I am kind of removed from the day-to-day operations.
Okay, Dave, we got to run. We got to get over to Saipan, but appreciate the update. And if there's any new developments with the application or the software or whatnot, shoot us a message.
I will do that.
Thanks.
I hope to hear something this week. Thank you, Sabrina.
Appreciate it.
Okay, bye.
Wash your hands.
All right.
Okay, bye. Yeah, so obviously we do want to talk about the closure of some of the quarantine facilities and what it means to the people who are in quarantine. We know what it means for the directors and the deputy directors. No more free meals. That's got to suck. Your first day back on the job, no more catering for the cabinet. No more COVID differential pay. It was a little much, honestly. We've been tracking this thing with the quarantine, and there was a column from the Bureau of Women's Affairs Director Jane Flores that had come out over the weekend and accusing the media of not telling the whole story. But I just want to say that, hey, we got Rebecca Respicio on, and that was the whole other side of the story, and I'm just not sure if it's a good side. I'm just not sure. I think the people have just decided on this.
No, it was the rest of the story. It wasn't the whole story.
Oh, the
we
rest.
never got the whole story.
Right, yeah. I don't know if we can handle the whole story. But yeah, so obviously we're going to be talking about this. I don't know. I feel like the tone from these directors and deputy directors, it's like, how come you guys don't know how hard we're working? How come you guys don't know how hard we're working all this time in the quarantine? That's just the vibe I get. I mean, for you guys to miss the whole point about this, the whole point is, while you guys are sitting there talking about how you're not appreciated for what you're doing, there are people out here who are doing the same work, who are doing more work than you guys for way less money. I mean, some of the way these guys describe the job that they're doing, I mean, it's either somewhere between field surgeon on a battlefield or hotel concierge. And I think the accurate thing is probably somewhere more in the middle. And, there are people who deliver meals to people's rooms. They get like $8 an hour.
No, but the unsigned contracts clearly said that the hotel shall provide 3 meals a day, deliver the meals 7 days a week, that the hotel shall provide labor and personnel.
The what contracts?
The unsigned
contracts. The unsigned contracts, that's right. The unsigned contracts. Huh.
And then you have the new contracts, which...
This is interesting to follow.
The National Guard is going to be taking over the operations.
Right. I just think it's a little much. The whole quarantine soldiers, quarantine shepherds. I mean, really, why don't you guys just come on and say quarantine saviors? Because that's what you really mean, right? Right? Because it's about saving people's lives.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but I still don't agree with why DYA director and deputy director are working a quarantine facility when they are running a youth correctional facility. So who's in charge over there?
I think what's really going to...
Could you imagine, we don't even know, DOC director, could you imagine he was over there working at the quarantine facility? I mean, who knows? We never got the complete list.
Right. Yeah, in fact, it said that Jane Flores was working at the quarantine facility, but her name was nowhere on any of the lists that we received, and they were never really forthright with coming out with a list because we asked for the list the first time, and then we got a half-ass list from Carlo Branch, and then I had to go back and be like, hey, what the rest of the list? So the whole thing just stinks. It just stinks, and I don't know how much of these guys coming out and trying to make us feel bad. I mean, what's with the guilt trip? Why are you guys trying to lay a guilt trip on us?
I don't feel any guilt.
I don't, and I'm just saying that if you don't realize that you guys complaining about how hard you worked while making, $60, $70, $80, $90,000 a year, if you don't get that it's a bad look for you to sit there and complain about nobody appreciates us because we were doing the quarantine and we had to go get you towels at 2 a.m. Oh my God.
The deputy executive manager
and we're getting 15%
of the airport
COVID
working
pay.
Quarantine.
Yeah, it's just a bad look because there are nurses out here. Hell, there are people making minimum wage who are doing the same thing you guys are doing, but you don't hear them complaining. I'm sure they love to, though. And they weren't getting $80,000 worth of catered meals. So it's
with no contract.
Yeah, you guys can't act like, it was all that and your savers and your shepherds and your soldiers. When, I mean, God, Jesus, the National Guard don't even get 3 catered meals a day. Mm-hmm. And they're real soldiers.
The deputy director of the Department of Labor over at the quarantine facility. And you just heard from David Della Sola. Oh, he's back now, and he's going to be running the day-to-day operations while he's working on FPUC and PUA.
Who's been running the day-to-day operations this whole time while Dave was working on that fucking the PUA? Yeah, but I think for me, Bree, it's, you could argue all day. We're not saying like they didn't do any work, but they're overselling it a little bit. It's just a little bit over the top when you have people who do this same type of work that these directors are overpaid to do. And when you're sitting there complaining about, we have exposure, why don't you think about the person at GMH, the person who works at the clinic, the person who's making, $10 an hour maybe tops, the nurse who's making, $30,000 a year or whatever. Mm-hmm. Think about what they're going through before you come out here and try and tell us that, you guys deserve medals, because that's where it's going. Yeah. I feel like they want to get some medals or something.
Yeah.
Like they want to do, maybe a Senator Amanda Shelton or whoever at the legislature can do like a nice resolution for the selfless heroes, the COVID shepherds.
And another thing, when I was going back through the contracts, like some of these contracts, some of them, they all weren't signed by, the government officials, but they were signed. A couple of them were signed by the hotels. And they were signed on May 8th, which is the same day that the governor signed and issued her memorandum saying, I've got these superpowers, pay out these invoices, use the CARES Act funding. The CARES Act funding, by the way, is the $118 million,
right,
which the U.S. Treasury set guidelines. So some of that money could have been used for something else other than the $4 million for the mandatory quarantine program, because we all know that there was this initial effort to pay the quarantine isolation facilities through FEMA reimbursement.
Right.
That didn't happen.
No, so
there were no signatures.
Yeah, so we're using the CARES funds. But what's really interesting to me is, obviously they went through this route trying to get it on the FEMA reimbursement, but when they hit that Charles Esteves roadblock over at Civil Defense, and you guys heard it.
Kenga roadblock.
Yeah, when they hit the
Lester Carlson BB&R roadblock.
When they hit the we do it by the book roadblock, they had to back up their little procurement vehicle and go over to this lane with the Superpowers highway and get it done that way. So you're right. And, I guess their argument obviously would be like, it just takes too long. The procurement, and there's too many rules and the laws. It's like, so we're going to do it this whole other way. So they did it this whole other way. But I think what has been shown now is that we've had new quarantine facilities, reawarding of contracts that were done by the book, through the system, through Guam Homeland, through General Services Agency, through the Chief Procurement Officer, through all these people who know what they're doing, and it's done. It's done. They got quarantine hotels, and it didn't take 6 months. It didn't take a year. They were able to act quickly during this public health emergency. So to me, the whole argument that, this is going to take so long, and we don't and God, we got to play by the rules, and they don't want to sign it, it's all out the window because these guys have shown that they can do it by the book. in an expedient way, in a way that, you know, they didn't miss a beat. I mean, the facilities contract expired, and now we've got some new contracts that are signed by people who sign things.
That certify things.
Yeah, okay.
And this one will probably, you know, get federal reimbursement, FEMA reimbursement, because the proper protocols were met.
Yeah, and I just got to go back to, there's a comment here, something about the little guy. Yeah, you know, when you guys are out there, like I think Jane Flores, I want to say she makes like $70-some thousand a year. It's just salary. Just salary. I mean, so many of these directors, and I can do it. I'll go to the staffing pattern, and if you guys want to do that, I will go down that staffing pattern, and I will tell you how much each and every one of those people who are working in that quarantine facility were making, and then we compare it to how much, let's say, I don't know, a nurse is making, or a janitor who's, you know, sweeping up GMH ER, or a hotel worker who has to deliver meals to a bus driver. I mean, really, just stop your sob story. We're not saying you didn't do any work, but I think you guys it's over the top. And, I mean, keep it up, though, because it sure is entertaining, but I'm speaking to you, trying to do you a favor here. Like, just stop it already. Just enough about the quarantine saviors. Because let's save it until we find out how much differential pay they made. That's going to be a whole other, you know, I move away from this, but in about a week, the FOIAs are going to come in, and we're going to find out how much COVID differential pay they made. And remember, 15% of 80 grand, 15% of 90 grand, 15% of 100 grand. It's a whole lot more than 15% of whatever we're paying a nurse at public health.
Yep.
That much math I know.
And these directors, deputy directors aren't eligible for double pay.
Yeah. So, there you go. 657. Yeah, that was kind of sitting with me wrong. And it kind of backfired. If you look at that column that Jane Flores wrote, I think it was for the Post, if the comments are just crazy. The comments are like, are you serious? And I feel like they were like, let's send out our journalism warrior. We will combat journalism with journalism. But guess what? You're not a journalist anymore. You work for the government. Anyway, it is what it is. I mean, it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Right, okay. It's Monday, Sabrina.
Happy Monday!
Yeah, let's go over to the CNMI. Switch gears just a little bit. Where I don't know who's staffing you guys' quarantine facilities over there in the CNMI, Tomas.
Well, you're giving me a lot to work off of there, Chris, so we'll continue to ask those questions, too. You know, as the cases increase here, too.
Right. So let's take care of official business. He's our man on the COVID beat for the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. Tomas Maglotnia, good morning.
Good morning. So here's the latest on containing COVID in the CNMI. Saturday, the CNMI announced its total COVID cases is now up to 21. A press release by the CNMI Office of the Governor says the 2 new cases on Saturday are of a 31-year-old male and 22-year-old female who are both asymptomatic and contacts of previous COVID-19 cases residing in the CNMI. They're both now isolated at the Kanoa Resort facility. And some news for residents and viewers on Rhoda and Tinian. The COVID-19 testing initiative is now expanding to Tinian and Rhoda starting today. The COVID-19 task force on Saipan also allows for group registrations for businesses with 50 or more employees. Commonwealth Healthcare Corporation CEO Esther Monia tells KUAM last night that testing on Rhoda and Tinian can test up to 94 people a day on each island. Testing locations on Rhoda will take place at the Benjamin T. Manglotnia International Airport or the Rhoda Health Center. Residents on Tinian will be tested at the Tinian Health Center. CHC and Saipan temporarily suspended testing registration in an effort to expand its staff and equipment to provide a more sustainable process. The CNMI Governor's Press Secretary Kevin Bautista tells KUAM that any positive cases on Tinian and Rhoda will be med-evacuated to and treated on Saipan. And some news from the NMI Congressman Kilili's office as the cases rise in the CNMI. He says that $4 million has been awarded to CHCC on Saipan for testing and tracking. The CDC awarded about $4 million to the hospital to enhance the local public health testing infrastructure. Congress made these funds available through the Paycheck Protection Program and Healthcare Enhancement Act. The award is expected to be disbursed no later than May 23rd to develop testing, conduct surveillance, and trace contacts. And some news from the CNMI legislature today, the House Committee on Commerce and Tourism will hear a presentation by the Governor's Economic Task Force at 10 a.m. presenting their recovery plan. As we reported prior, the target date to open tourism is on July 15. That House Committee on Commerce and Tourism presentation is going to take place at 10 a.m. at the House Chamber on Capitol Hill. And the governor is expected to have another press briefing this morning through a local radio show at 8 a.m. Again, the CNMI Governor Rob Torres has been holding press briefings every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday through this local radio show at 8 a.m. Just to wrap up the report, and just to wrap up here, I wanted to provide the latest numbers to our viewers on COVID-19 in the NMI. The cumulative number of confirmed COVID-19 cases again stands at 21. The number of persons released from the quarantine is 414. Number of deaths remains at 2. And the cumulative number of recovered cases is 12. And so that leaves us with about 7 active cases in the CNMI. And lastly, as of May 16, the cumulative number of specimens collected through the Community Testing Initiative is 3,339. Of course, we're expected to see more people get tested as testing initiative is now expanded to Rhoda and Tinian starting today. Bring Chris.
Well, sounds like a big day over there at CNMI. So these press conferences are handled through a radio station and not the governor's office?
Yes, the hosts of the radio show say that they just want to be able to help the governor's staff with holding these briefings. So he's agreed to have them, at least for now, Monday, Wednesday, Friday through 8 a.m. At 8 a.m. through this. So we're given the Zoom link, and the other media are able to go on the show and just ask the questions, and then the recording is sent to us.
Who's controlling the Zoom link? Is it the governor's office?
It is the radio show, KKMC.
So the governor's office doesn't have the ability anymore because they did it before to do the Zoom link. I remember when they had that press conference so many moons ago.
Yeah, and so that's the new setup now, and I know a lot of reporters are jumping on it just to make sure that their answers, their questions are answered. And right now, it's looking like that's going to be 3 days a week.
Was there an explanation given as to why the CNMI governor is using a radio station to hold official press conferences for the governor, as opposed to not hosting it themselves?
Bree and Chris, I'm still pouring through those documents, but we're also seeing that the radio station might have been contracted by the government also as well. So in a way, maybe this is technically government run if they do have that contract. I believe it might have been around $10,000. I can double check on that. But we're going to continue to dig into those numbers. I'm going to ask the governor today at 8 a.m. about the hotel contracts. This is something that the GAR on Wednesday here, Patrick Guerrero, or Tuesday at last week's legislature committee meeting, was talking about the different amounts for the different vendors and things like that. So we're going to get the governor on the record this morning at 8 a.m. On the different contracts.
Okay. Are they online or any of these?
They're being circulated online. I've had a few members of the legislature send it my way, and so we're going to get them on that, and then we're also going to get a member of the legislature on the record for a story tonight reacting to the contract.
The ones you've seen, are they signed?
The ones I've seen are just a spreadsheet of the cost.
I see.
Nothing beyond, nothing as in-depth as the contract. So we're going to wait on that and see if we can get, exactly what everyone else is looking at in terms of when they were assigned and under what authority.
All right. Thanks a lot, Tomas.
Yeah. So I read something. Are you going to be also tracking down like restaurants and businesses as they start to think about gradually reopening?
Yeah, that's right. So today, I think it's for tomorrow, but for today, I'm going to be interviewing late this afternoon 2 restaurants. As the governor releases the plans for reopening, we're going to talk to these restaurants about, how comfortable they are with everything that's going on and what their new operations are going to look like. Obviously, everyone right now is still doing takeout and curbside pickup, and I will be speaking with one bakery and then one restaurant who a lot of tourists also visit, and so with the target date set for July 15, we're going to talk to these owners and folks at the restaurant on how comfortable they are and what their plans are to kind of, return to whatever this normal is now.
Right. I mean, what I want to know, Tomas, is maybe if you could get some documents, find out how the COVID has affected the CNMI's exporting of the blueberry cream cheese bread.
Yeah, that's so good.
Chris, do you want to contract me? I can send that to you.
We know the ice keki's still flowing, but we're concerned about the blueberry cream cheese bread. One of Saipan's top exports.
I've been to Hawaii, and they have plenty there. So soon.
Plenty. Okay.
What's the other one that we get that Juan Carlos sent?
That's from Harvest.
Oh man, that is so good.
They have a taro bread there that's purple.
Yeah, those are the two favorites, and they're still making it. Those places are still open, so people are able to pick them up. So.
Care packages are, nice.
Yeah, Tomas, you send that back with your story, or it might not run.
Oh my goodness!
Hey, and also, I know we shouted you out on your grad, but I saw over the weekend that what was it with your schooling? They had did they have like a virtual grad? Because there was a lot of virtual things going on.
It was a first. I mean, I don't even use Minecraft, but that was interesting. And speaking on that, I reached out to the Commissioner of Education here because. Graduation season for the public school system here in the CNMI is, going to start. And some of them are having drive-through graduations. So I want to be sure to be there and cover it because the plan is that the high school students are going to drive to this huge parking lot and only about 2 at a time will go to the stage, of course, socially distant from their car. And so I think that's a great story and a great way to celebrate the class of 2020 in high school. So
we had a question here, Tomas. Sorry. Can you ask Tomas, how can I get a birth certificate from Rhoda?
Is this person on Rhoda or
no? Without leaving Guam, sounds like they're here.
Oh, I see. Well, I would probably suggest that they call the Rhoda Health Center. That number's online, and that's the place where you can get that. Is my understanding. So, Rhoda Health Center is the place for that. And if this is somehow COVID-19 related, or if it's with regards to travel or getting tested, I would definitely call the hotline depending on where you're getting tested. So the hotline can definitely help you with that. And I'm assuming because it's a birth, I don't know what this viewer is exactly asking, but if it's to get tested and you need an ID, it can just be any picture ID. So if that's what you're asking, it can be any picture ID. It doesn't need to be that specifically. But otherwise, Rhoda Health Center and COVID-19 info line would be helpful.
I just wanted to get you excited because I know you're a Rhoda boy, so.
Well, you know what? I hope I can make it there soon and cover what's happening on Rhoda and Tinian especially. So
right on. Maybe you could be like the reverse island hopper and go to Rhoda and then jump over to Guam.
Yeah. We'll see. Star Marianas, also postponed their flight, so May 22nd is their new target date. So we'll see how travel goes between the CNMI, within the CNMI. So.
Okay, Tomas, we got to grab Mary Rhodes real quick on the Roosevelt.
All right. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Wash your hands.
You too. Bye.
Okay. Tomas Manglotnia, 7:08. We'll take a little break, and we got Mary Rhodes coming on to talk about the Roosevelt. There's been some new developments with the Theodore Roosevelt. Just looking at a story here. Got eyes on a release, Bree, that more than a dozen USS Theodore Roosevelt sailors test positive for coronavirus a second time. All right, so we're going to talk with Mary Rhodes, find out about the whole process that they went through with the quarantine and what is these the latest news here out of the Roosevelt? What does it mean for us here beyond the fence line? 709, containing COVID. Good morning on you.
McDonald's reminds everyone
Keeping you informed, KUAM News brings you Banking 671, brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, and Coast 360 Federal Credit Union. Together, we thrive.
KUAM News COVID-19 Takeover on I-94 FM is presented locally by Ambrose Inc.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
With the new challenges we're all facing, First Hawaiian Bank wants to make sure you have access to your financial world. With FHB Online and our mobile app, we hope to make banking the least of your worries. Visit fhb.com/digital.
healthy. Be informed with ITD. Be healthy. Be informed with ITD.
Kids from Chuk and Nemina. Yeah. Yep, KFC. In case you don't, the speaker understands Shukis. I asked these guys, hey, what's that song about? And they said it's about a girl. Okay, got it. Aren't most songs though?
These guys are in high school, right?
They were in high school. Yeah.
They still together?
I
I think one of them might have went off to school, or I'm not really sure. I'm going to shoot him a message, though, today and find out. It'd be great to get him to do a Stay Home Live Local Fridays, right? 7:15, Guam's favorite, containing COVID. 637-0094. Let's go ahead and knock out Mary Rhodes here to talk about this Roosevelt issue. Good morning, Mary.
Hi,
Welcome
Mary.
back.
Hi, good morning. Thank you.
So Sabrina's so we're talking about the Roosevelt quarantine. And Mary, I guess just with the news coming out that we're starting to see more of these sailors, at least a dozen according to one national news story that I saw, test positive. What does that mean for quarantining on Guam? Because I thought that we had closed them out, right?
Yes, actually, 9 hotels have already completed services with the USS Roosevelt. And in order for them to leave the hotels, we actually had them test twice. If you remember, Rear Admiral Manoni, but also the Pac Fleet four-star admiral talked about having additional tests. And so there was a bit of a delay to hold on to them so we could make sure that their tests were going to indicate again after first test before they leave the hotel. Whether or not they're positive or negative. So we've had some interesting turnarounds in the fact that some of the sailors were asymptomatic, where they stayed the entire time and still were testing positive. So those are things that they're been dealing with. And the hotels, when we were providing the services, they made sure every time somebody showed symptoms or tested positive that they were immediately removed to go back to Navy Base Guam.
What kind of tests were they using? Do you know? Was it the Abbott 10?
It's the swab test because I took it myself last week. And so it's the one that, it's the swab test that has to go for a couple of days for actual test results. Mine went to public health for the test results, but I do know that they're working with them locally, but also working with the test results going to another location.
So are you still in contact with the Navy with the Roosevelt? I mean, do they call you and say, hey, we just had a bunch of people test positive again?
Yeah, I get the daily reports, but also I still handle all logistics with the hotels. So out of the 11 hotels, we still have 2 hotels that are currently housing sailors, and those sailors were the stay-behind teams that kept watch of the Roosevelt and manned all departments so that they were continuing to maintain. So those were the last of those sailors who had initially tested negative. They stayed on the ship throughout the entire quarantine period, and now they themselves are in quarantine at 2 hotels.
So we still have sailors at quarantine hotels?
Yeah, they were intended to be what's called leave behind. So they were, I know that there have been articles out there indicating that should the Roosevelt need to leave, they are ready to leave at any moment. There will continue to be sailors either in the hotels or on Navy Base Guam who are currently waiting out their isolation because they tested positive. So they're waiting out their isolation period so that they will either be flown to the ship or back or to the carrier or back to San Diego when they're ready to travel, when they're healthy and ready to travel. So there was always a plan for that, but considering that the Roosevelt is still docked, they may indeed just continue to receive them as they're waiting to go back out on the water.
How many sailors are we talking about in to the 2 quarantine hotels, Mary?
The last 2 hotels was a little over 500.
So we still have a significant presence from the Roosevelt on island.
Yeah, that's just in the hotels. There are some currently still on base in Navy Base Guam, in isolation centers there.
So let's take us back on how all of this, happened with the quarantine facilities and the Roosevelt.
Sure. So originally, Homeland Security Advisor Tim Uggan and the Chief of Staff had contacted me with regards to needing quarantine facilities. So we sent out some emails asking all the hotels who would participate. And during that time, several hotels said no because they currently had travelers. And so there were two protocols, which I just resent you the protocols from GDB and GHRA. There were two protocols that were set, one for Manila travelers and one for non-Manila. Mm-hmm. And during that time when we're dealing with the hotels who were set aside for non-Manila, they were the ones who currently still had tourists and they had quarantine floors. For Manila flights, we secured Wyndham and Days Inn at that time, and then we were in talks with Hotel Santa Fe. As Manila decided to close down the airport for those 3 days before they reopened it back on Saturday, that's when I heard Pacific Star was interested, and then we provided that information to Homeland Security. So Homeland Security has always been involved, but I was working mostly with Tim Uggan, not Chuck Esteves. And so whatever that means in their realm, whatever they needed to do, I know that they followed through with Hai Hoon, who's legal counsel, and he started dealing with the negotiations at that point. So really between Homeland Security as well as the other agencies that needed to get involved, I don't know if they were involved at that point with legal contracting, but at least every time we turned on a hotel, all of the agencies were involved to do their assessment, whether it's Public Health, CDC, Guam Police Department, Guam Fire, and also Homeland Security was there for every site assessment before they turned on a hotel, both for local quarantine with Government of Guam as well as the USS Roosevelt. We did not activate a hotel without a site assessment with the local government included. Their role was primarily only for the site assessment, though, so that they knew which hotels were going to be used for quarantine. Then what happened was, as soon as that point, whenever contract negotiations were taking place, that's where I was removed from the process, and I started working with the Roosevelt. The Roosevelt's a little different. They actually wanted to work with GHRA to help coordinate the whole thing because it was difficult. We had to staff up to about 5,000 hotel rooms. And initially, within a 36-hour period, I was able to get 4,000 rooms. And then we built up to the 5,000 eventually as the need was confirmed. And so we were able to get 9 hotels secured within the 36 hours. And we were able to start receiving sailors within probably even 48 hours.
And so GHRA took the lead for the TR quarantine facilities, right?
Yeah, we started facilitating and coordinating on behalf of the TR together with the U.S. Navy and Department of Defense. So the contract officer I'm working with is out of Hawaii, and they have since sent 2 individuals, one a commander in uniform who's in charge of NAPSUP. She's been on Guam for about a week and a half, and then the other person who's here now is really doing reconciliation, and so she's doing all the legwork to make sure that everything that we submitted, all of the numbers that we say from the command center, she's validating it between the medical team together with security forces, with the Marines, and then also with the hotels and the officers in charge at every hotel. So every hotel has a command center. And so all of that data needs to be verified by somebody, and that's the contract officer, to make sure that when we issue meals, as well as any amenities, that those are, or even additional rooms, if they have to transfer out rooms for whatever reason, or if they have to go back on base, that all of those protocols were followed.
Hey, Mary, let me ask you. So, in the with the Roosevelt quarantine, who is performing the duties that we saw the directors and deputy directors and the Adelup staff perform at the Gov Guam quarantine and isolation facilities? So, who are your COVID,
no,
your quarantine
Days Inn
shepherds?
Wyndham is always. Days Inn and Wyndham, those services were provided by National Guard as well as Public Health. And I know that a couple of Guam officials were there as well, together with Public Health. For the Roosevelt, we made sure that they made sure that it was actually the Marines. And then there was a there's a command center at every hotel, and each command was adopted by a different part of the military. So, for example, there was one hotel that was specifically the HSC-25 helicopter squadron. There was one hotel that was just the EOD, the bomb disposal, the group here in Guam. So each group manned a different hotel, and so they basically took responsibility for that. So it was an entire team approach with the military, and so they handled all services. The only thing that the corpsmen, the medical professionals, handled were the daily screenings and the medical procedures whenever they needed to get somebody some additional assistance, whether they were testing for COVID or not, even if they were asthmatic and needed to be removed and go get medical assistance. That was only the corpsmen, the medical team. So each time it was always security forces and a medical team.
Right. And so have the contracts been signed, or were they signed, or how does that work?
We've had iterations of that. We've had initially, when we started, in order to proceed with services, I always received a verbal authorization with a follow-up email authorizing certain amount of dollars to be spent with allocation of people. So let's say, for example, 400 sailors at a value of this much for the contract. So it's very clear each time we turn on a hotel, each time there was authorizations received with the dollars amount as well as the number of people with those dollars included. And then what we've been having the last 3 weeks is it's called a letter contract. And the letter contract basically starts putting everything on paper because we have been going back and forth on our actual contract. And so as we're validating the information to get to a definitized contract, we at least have had a letter contract in place, which is still binding, and it's a lease agreement on terms and the number of people and up to a certain amount, authorization amount, because the government has to identify the funds before they could spend it and then authorize the funds as we continue to add more people. But also there are many times when the dates were pushed to the right, and so we added more time in quarantine. So I know, again, you were aware that the decision was made where they went from a 14-day quarantine to 17 days and then to 21 days.
And how much did they pay for each room, and was it similar to the government of Guam's where it was $100 per day, and regardless if the rooms were filled or not?
No, they're based on federal per diem rates is how we came up with the rates. It's the same as what we initially proposed to the government of Guam. These rates are approved by Congress, and it's what anyone would spend if you're a military or Department of Defense or even a government official when you stay in a lodging service, whether it's on Navy Base Guam or in a hotel. There are government rates. And so we worked with government rates because we knew it was going to be paid for by the government. And so I can't disclose those rates. It's based on a package where it's all inclusive to that one rate. Includes the rooms, the meals 3 times a day, as well as the laundry, linens, incidentals like Wi-Fi, things like that. But our premise was really using federal rates, so that way it's acceptable by the federal government.
I see.
Mary, we were talking briefly before. Are we good on the Roosevelt? Or?
Yeah, the Roosevelt, we, again, we're going through that process, and every time a hotel is closed down, it is closed for at least 7 days because that's CDC's guidelines.
Right.
Both Guam's contract with the local government as well as the federal contract, we did ask for certain days of closure to ensure that the virus is just killed by leaving it alone. But we've done more than that, where the rooms have been closed for at least 7 days, and then during the additional 7 days for a 14-day period, they go through a sanitization process, but even more so a disinfection and decontamination process. Wow. So they're kind of doing additional steps to make sure that the areas are secured and really cleaned. Because we're not cleaning just a facility for turnover to people later on. We have to be able to clearly explain and represent that we went above and beyond what CDC or even WHO promotes on how to clean facilities, especially lodging services, because we have to, repackage this and sell it in the future. And we want to make sure that these hotels are going through all the necessary due diligence with regards to cleaning. All red rooms, any positive rooms, were actually one of the things we were able to get approved. Was
Is that what you guys call it, red room?
Yeah, we called them red rooms.
That's the code
that was
word,
actually
right?
The military term. Yeah, the military
Red
term.
room,
is
red room.
green,
Reminds me of The
yellow
Shining,
room for
right?
quarantine, and then I know, right? Yellow room for quarantine. But anytime anyone had tested positive or left for medical reasons, we mark it off, and they were double secured so nobody re-enters. And in addition to decontamination, we got authorization for biohazard removal. So what that means is whether or not there was visible biohazard like blood or anything, it doesn't matter. We took the extra steps, and the military agreed to dispose of all of the soft goods. So, for example, all the linens, the towels, the pillows, those will be incinerated. And so we are actually replacing with new materials in the room.
When you say we, is this the GHRA, is it the government, or is it the military?
The government has agreed through U.S. Navy. The one who's paying for this is actually the Roosevelt through the U.S. Navy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I was
this is
wondering.
not paid for by one of the regular funds through Joint Region Marianas. We've actually had to go through the authorization with U.S. Navy and U.S. Department of Defense as a special fund through for the TR Roosevelt. So it's the Roosevelt is actually the one who's authorizing all the funds with the contract officer based on need and requirements. And so we're very grateful that they've agreed to work with us on the biohazard and decontamination and cooperate in doing more than what's necessary, medically necessary, to make everybody at least understand the process, but also reassured that we went 2-3 times as much to make sure that these rooms can go back to the market and for our leisure travelers, and make them reassured that also the items that were in the room were actually disposed of and incinerated as bio-waste.
How many red rooms are we talking about, Mary?
We've had over 500 so far. I know that those numbers were given out by Joint Region Mariana.
Right.
And so we've had over 500. And so when you're talking 11 hotels so far, right, we still have 2 hotels that are still active. But I think what's really important is that there were protocols in place, and, how people got infected during this process is yet to be seen. I think there's some questions in different that they're looking at of how this still happened, even though they've been in quarantine. But our role is to make sure that when there is a question, that they are brought back to Navy Base Guam and they get the medical attention they need. But then the hotels, those rooms are closed, not to expose anyone further. And then we handle it a different way once the hotel completely is closed down.
Right,
decontamination.
These 500 red rooms, can you provide a breakdown of how many in each hotel were red rooms?
I can't disclose that. I think that's, even us, we don't even have the full, I don't even have the information as far as I have the information as far as how many hotels and which ones, but because of HIPAA, I was not able to receive specific data. Right. So even that and how they're treating it is still, they're making sure that we get the support we need to clean and secure the rooms and to clear it and properly disinfect it and decontaminate it. But I didn't get any personal data as far as who was in there and why. Right. We don't even have a reason why. We just know this is how many rooms were closed.
Right. Mary, let me ask you, so I know you get the daily briefing, and finding out that these sailors who are testing positive after they've been released, what are they saying about it, though? Is it that the test, the first times they were tested, it wasn't read right, or are they coming into contact with other people? How are they testing positive? Do you have any info on that?
Our briefings are specific to the mission of task force, which is what they call it, the task force TR. And so we get information related to the sailors inside the hotel. We don't get information on sailors inside the fence or on the Roosevelt. So our mission and our directive is really for those that we're currently providing services for inside the hotels only.
Hey, and then on a different note, with the quarantine ISO facilities that you kind of brought people together on, what was the deal with the providing of meals? Because in Bree reviewing these documents, it kind of seemed like the contracts, not contracts, had covered that the hotels would be the ones putting the meals out. So can you just don't go too deep into it, but tell us what do you know about it?
Originally, it was never intended. I know I did several interviews with you guys, or two interviews, and originally none of the hotel employees, they were only supposed to provide back at the house operations. And so we've been very clear with this. Even Linda has done some interviews on this of how it was going to be handled. And so we put out an FAQ for the mandatory quarantine by GDB and GHRA, and that was reviewed by JIC and also Public Health. And so it's been pretty clear from the beginning that the hotel employees would not come in contact with anyone in quarantine, that they only provide back of the house support. So I'm surprised that contract language was in there, or it might have changed, because that's the reason why you've had all these individuals in the hotels serving food and serving linens. And so just again, to clarify, Days Inn, Wyndham, and Santa Fe all had public health, and also I believe they even had DOE nurses come and assist during this time. So regardless, they were medical related staff, maybe not medical professionals, but all medically related staff assisting, and National Guard and Police Department were at those other facilities as well.
Well, Mary, if you require any additional personnel here, as we're now releasing these directors, deputies, and the other out-of-loop staffers, they do have experience in quarantine shepherding and quarantine soldiering.
Thank you. I'd like to just kind of stick with what we have. It's been working.
All right, Mary. Just checking. Hey.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you so much, Mary.
Right.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks, you guys.
Okay. Take care.
Have a great week.
Okay.
Bye.
Wash your hands.
I will.
Okay. Bye. What? I'm just saying, I feel bad for these guys. Not that what they did, because they were more than well compensated. Beyond well compensated, over compensated, maybe.
Yeah. This PacStar contract was one of the unsigned ones. But
Yeah. So Mary got nothing to do with the PacStar guys.
Yeah.
She's like, I ain't got nothing to do with that. I don't care how many times they say GHRA. We're not involved. But I feel bad for these deputies and these directors going back to work, because no one's going to want to deal with them, because they're going to be like, oh, you could be contaminated. I wonder, were they tested when on the exit out process?
Good question.
Thank you. 7:38. Let's go back to the phones. We have Jesse. Sorry about that, Jesse. I know you called before Mary got on, but Mary's a little bit long-winded, and plus,
Bree, I understand that.
When Bree goes into quarantine, she's going into we are going to ask all the questions.
I completely understand that.
How you doing, Jesse?
I'm doing good. It's been a long time, Bree. Almost a year since our last interview.
Yes, I think it popped up on my Facebook feed, actually. Memories.
It was that interview that actually opened the door for me to reach out to many others still struggling with their demons.
Right.
But the reason why I'm calling in this morning is on behalf of my wife. She's a frontliner, and she's a nurse at Public Health, and we were protesting last week over at the ITC intersection with the rest of her colleagues in regards to the double pay. Now, before I go any further, these nurses, my wife does what she does out of the passion of her, out of her heart, and the love and care that she has for helping people out. It's just gotten to the point where double standards are prevalent throughout, and it's blatantly being displayed in front of our faces, without any regard for those that are actually on the front lines. Department of Corrections officers, GPD officers, medics, firemen, as well as the nurses and doctors that are out there and all the staff that are required to work. My only issue was this. The AG states that, I believe it was item 2 on his opinion, that because these frontliners are called to work, it's considered a regular work day, if I'm interpreting what his opinion says correctly. However, this public health emergency, keyword public health emergency, It's an emergency where you cannot close the clinics. And it's far from their normal and regular duties in which they typically respond to. Every single day, protocols change on a whim. So for the AG to state that his opinion is it's a work day that they should be called in because it's their work, unlike other places that are closed but are required to come in to perform duties, it doesn't jive because these nurses have to go to work. It's a public health emergency. They have to. Whether they like it or not, they have to go. Same with the firemen and medics. So I personally believe that they should be compensated, duly, because in any emergency, from a typhoon to a natural disaster, whatever the case may be, all other agencies are awarded double pay, as well as these nurses. My wife was awarded double pay in the last typhoon we had because she had spent 2 nights over at the public health center in Iran. And yes, I understand that she was off, but they called her in. Right. But with an emergency such as this, it's inconceivable to think that the clinics are going to close down. So for them to justify that, it's their job. They have to come in. Of course it's their job. The clinics are not going to close down. I'm frustrated. I'm extremely frustrated because this has really nothing to do with the money, but it has more to do with, closed mouths don't get fed. And people need to speak up and stand up to what is wrong. If you're going to make it fair across the board. These nurses, my wife nearly got infected. So she was out of work for 12 days as a precaution. She tested negative, but she was out of work for 12 days as a precautionary measure. Thankfully, admin leave was applied to her being out of work. However, now they got a memo that if they were to take leave, admin leave will not be applied now. It will now be used as sick or annual leave, which it doesn't make sense to me. Just because they're supposed to work on a regular day doesn't mean the same rules should apply on an emergency, because everything changes. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm biased because she's my wife and she's a nurse and I'm defending all these frontliners, but to keep it simple and use basic logic, there is a time for politics, and I understand that politicians lengthen their pockets when the opportunity presents itself, but in a time where the world is suffering simultaneously as one, there's no time for personal gain. This is a time where everybody should be treated equally and fairly.
Were you surprised that the AG's opinion was what it was?
I was actually shocked. I was shocked that the AG, in one respect, I was shocked. But then upon further dissecting his opinion, I was led to believe that, he just does as he's told. It's a shame that the AG doesn't have a backbone in which he can stand on, because the law is ambiguous, right? And he's reading the law to an interpretation that fits the narrative and needs of this administration. Now, the law can be interpreted in more ways than one, but he's choosing to interpret it the way that the administration wants it interpreted. If Senator Moylan, Tina Marie Barnes, as well as Mike Nicholas and a few other senators have said that the CARES Act funds the frontliners' essential pay, why doesn't the governor see the same thing? It's at no cost to the local government to provide the double pay or the essential pay. Now, if it does hypothetically come out of the general fund, I would surmise that the federal government will reimburse it through the CARES Act. So I just want to understand the governor's logic, because if 1 or 2 people are with you, but then 7 or 8 or even 20 people are against you, then obviously you must have to take an inner look at yourself to see if the decisions that you are making are what's right for the people and for those on the front lines. Now, from the way I see it, she stands alone with the AG in her decision, and maybe a few other people on this whole double pay issue thing. But the vast majority, including elected leaders, are disagreeing with her.
Yeah, and I think, Jesse, it's obvious why. I mean, we have frontliners who are working this pandemic emergency who know their rights. They know what they're entitled to. Yeah. And they know they're supposed to be getting double pay. So I just have a problem when we ask the governor about it, her response, and it's canned because she's answered the same way a few different times. The response is that there's no amount of money that can make up or compensate the sacrifice of the nurses, and that's why I came up with this COVID differential pay, so everybody could get some.
With regards to the differential pay, that is an insult. I mean, we should be grateful, yes. They should be grateful for receiving something. However, to receive a $25 check for 40 hours after working 7 weeks, that shows, that's a lack, that's a slap in the face. And really, Governor, you're showing your appreciation that way? It's like, don't use semantics on us. Don't try to manipulate us by using your verbiage and just twisting it to make us feel good, because our ignorance will no longer be played upon. The people's ignorance can no longer be played upon, especially the frontliners. They've kept mum for so long because, they were taking care of the people, and in return, they were hoping that their government would take care of them, as Trump is doing, I guess, back in the States, and Congress and the Senate passing all these, stimulus bills and whatever the case may be to help out the people back there as well as the people on Guam. Yet our governor is sitting on idle hands, and it's very, very disheartening. It's saddening that we have the first female elected governor, someone who's a mother, someone who claims to be a nurse, but clearly her actions depict otherwise, and someone who's supposed to lead and break the glass ceiling, so to speak, Guam in a different direction. But that's neither the case here or there. Yeah. She's completely doing the opposite. And, I'm not... I don't hate this administration. Matter of fact, Josh Norrie was my daughter's godfather.
Hooray!
It's just I will speak up for what is right.
It's just kind of it's a no-brainer, Jess, because, like we said, people have gotten the double pay, and they've been expecting it, and so every time the administration goes out and says, no, we have this 25% thing or the 10% thing, it just...
Or this is a different sort of an emergency. This is a pandemic, public health emergency. But like you said, an emergency is an emergency. When, an emergency happens, there are only certain agencies that never close. And they respond. They put their lives at risk.
Exactly. Like my sister, she works for the government. She was on admin leave for 7 weeks. I went to her house. I looked at her. I gave her a smug look. I'm like, how dare you get paid? How dare you get paid?
Can I borrow?
Can I borrow? Yeah. Right. But I just wish the governor would, first of all, she needs to change whoever's advising her, because they're advising her to crash into an iceberg of Titanic proportions, and she needs to open up her eyes and have more empathy. I don't want to say sympathy, because we don't want to feel sorry for our people. We want empathy. We want you to relate to us on a level that's eye level. Don't sit upon your throne and wave your wand as if you're in a Disney featured film, because you're not. It's do for the people, and the people will ultimately do for you.
Yeah.
All right, Jess.
Is your wife signing up for the GFT lawsuit?
Yes, she's actually. That's why she did not want to speak up this time around, because I advised her not to, because I foresee the government, this administration, soon to apply pressure to these nurses to withdraw from the GFT. I'm gonna go out on a limb and predict that they're gonna apply the pressure to pursue these nurses to go out on a limb, because it's just the administration's another way of administration to manipulate, and the nurses and the frontliners. But I told my wife, stand your ground. I got your back. If they paid back the Port 7 for how many years of lost wages? Don't worry. Mm-hmm. The GFT will have you. Let them make their stupid decisions, and you will be sitting down with $100,000 in your pocket.
Right. Well, Jess, thanks, man. Call anytime, brother.
Thank you. You have a great day, Sabrina.
Okay.
You too. Be safe.
Wash your hands.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. Yeah, people are definitely frustrated about this double pay issue, and it really seems, I don't even think doubling down is the word for it. It's like Adelup is like tripled down, and they're just like, if we just keep saying the COVID differential thing, they're going to go away. Yeah. They go away. No, they're still there. Okay.
And they're going to pay the COVID differential pay through the CARES Act.
Right.
But you could actually, did we get that right from FEMA, Frank?
Yeah, basically
the double pay is eligible for FEMA reimbursement.
Right.
And it's the 75
25
cost share.
I mean, the bottom line is they're saying they can't afford to pay it, but so many other people are saying that we can use the federal money to pay. The federal money? Could use the federal to pay for it. So 749, let's keep on this quarantine, COVID, and Frontliner thing. I wanted to bring Leah onto the show here. Leah's son, and we'll let you go ahead and tell the story, Leah. But Leah's son had come from the States, and let's just start from there. So he knew he was coming back to Guam. So did he get tested for COVID-19 in anticipation that he would need some type of paper that says, hey, I was tested, don't put me in quarantine.
Exactly. I mean, the point was to be prepared. So we had the executive order. You know, we're following the rules. It basically says you have to produce medical documentation that you've tested, not positive, you tested negative for the COVID-19 virus. Now, that was it. You know, there was no other specifics, what type of test, and, you know, that sort of thing, other than it had to be within 72 hours of traveling to Guam. Mm-hmm. So my son lives in Las Vegas. He goes to UNLV. His uncle Paul lives in LA, and Paul found out that there's testing available at a private clinic, but you have to pay. But at least you get results really fast. Now, that was a blood test and for the antibodies. So basically that just tells you whether or not you've had COVID-19. And if it's negative, that means you're good. And you get this document that says you're negative. And we're trying to get things to move quickly because, you know, my mother-in-law passed away on May 3rd, and we just needed them back as soon as possible. And so, you know, we're thinking, okay, they're gonna be fine. But yet, when they arrived at the airport, there are 2 screening areas they went through. The first guy that spoke to them at the first station looked at their documents. He said, oh, you guys should be okay. This should be fine. Go over to the second station. When they evaluated their documents there, they kind of were unsure. They were like, well, we're not sure if this is going to be acceptable. Public health is closed right now. We won't know till tomorrow. Therefore, you have to go to the quarantine hotel. So, of course, you know, that was confusing to them. Like, you know, they're looking at their documentation and they're thinking, the screeners are thinking this isn't good enough. So they head over to the hotel, and I call my brother-in-law when he was already there. And I'm like, what happened? He's like, I don't know. They're telling us that tomorrow we have to email our documents to public health and that they have to review them. So, you know, so much confusion. I'm like really upset. And then when they finally get a response from Kane Agan, I think is his name, at public health, he basically said, we are not accepting the antibody blood test as documentation. We want the nasal swab test. So, again, we're following executive order. It doesn't say anything about a specific nasal swab test as being the acceptable medical documentation. So they just basically told my brother-in-law and my son, you know, you have to stay there. We're still evaluating. And so my brother-in-law's been emailing this guy several times last week, and I think spoke to him on the phone. And it's always the same response when Paul is trying to make a case that, you know, we're here, my mom passed away. It says that, you know, we should be able to be okay. And so the guy at public health just keeps telling him, what's pending, we're still reviewing. I mean, this is ever since last Tuesday now. So I'm like, I don't know what's the problem, right? So I was in other media shows. There was an interview on the Post that was published. The article was published on Saturday. On Friday, I finally got a call from Rebecca Respicio, who is the one that's in charge over there at the quarantine facility.
You mean a quarantine soldier?
Yeah, and
Wait, was she a soldier or a shepherd?
Shepherd, I think it's more like a shepherd. And so I've been leaving a message for her ever since Tuesday, and she didn't call me back. Finally, my girlfriend, who works at public health, called me Friday morning, and she's like, has anyone called you? And I'm like, no. I need to speak to Rebecca Respicio. And she's like, okay, let me have her call you. So luckily, she called me, right? This is Friday, and so I'm asking all kinds of questions. I said, you know, why can't you let them go? I mean, in fact, that day there was an article in the PDN that says that there are several reasons why you can bypass quarantine. And one of them said there's a death in the family, so you can attend the funeral. So I brought that up to her. I said, it says it right there. And it was she quoted in the article. That was her story, was about interviewing her. And she said, well, when is the funeral? I said, it's on May 29th. And she said, well, then, there's plenty of time for them to finish the quarantine and still attend the funeral.
Not on May 29th. That's nothing. You got 14 days to do here.
I know. Well, I mean, my brother only has 3 weeks leave, so 2 of them will be spent in the quarantine. Besides, you know what she said after that? It really bugged me. She said, well, if the funeral was in 2 days, then we would release them so they can attend the funeral. I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking, so if they didn't even have a test, they're just going to release them, right? But my brother-in-law and my son had a test, and it's all negative, but they won't release them. That doesn't even make any sense, right? So, for example, say the funeral was in 2 days, and my brother-in-law arrived today, they would release them, and then they go to the funeral, they could be COVID-19 positive, and infect everybody at the funeral. That's the logic? That doesn't even make any sense, right? So, again, I'm really, really confused. We have been asking, and I even called the Lieutenant Governor's office on Wednesday, asking for help, and I was really upset because the assistant there claims, okay, we'll call Public Health Director Lyndon Dorsey tomorrow, and then I'll let you know what happens. Well, when he calls me the next day, I could tell he was lying. Well, we spoke to her, and he's like totally stumbling over his words. You know when someone's lying to you. And he's like, well, she said that, or they said there that she has to follow CDC guidelines, and we can't do anything. That's a bunch of BS. She can do something. It's all spelled out. First of all, the technicality.
I just got to say that they, in the case of the director of GITA, who I know as her mother had passed, they let her out right away. They shouldn't even have to go into the quarantine. And the reason why Leah was because Linda and Pinko Denorsi had told us, we had asked her about this, and she had said that there were certain criteria. Then one of them was whether, and back then it wasn't death in the family. They would only had if you had underlying behavioral mental health issues, or if you had a pre-existing comorbidities. Those were your get out of quarantine free cards. But as you are telling us, it's not being equally applied across the board.
Not. You're exactly right, and that's what is so infuriating, right? Because why do some people get to be bypassed without having any tests at all? Yet here's my brother. He's actually had 2 tests. He had a swab test done, but he wasn't sure if the results were going to come in time for before he was planning on leaving, and that even came back negative. But his documents came when he arrived. But he took the swab test because the antibody test, because he knew he would get those results right away, thinking this is actually going to be better because I should be cleared easily, right? So that this is my observation, Chris. You come to the airport, you go to the screening process. They're going to size you up. They're going to look at you, partly. I mean, this is human nature, okay? They judge you physically, and if you look like someone important, high profile, or whatever, they're already going to have this stereotype, like, okay, this guy's someone important, or they're going to look at you like, oh, this is kind of some ordinary average person, I mean, that's just human nature. That's what happens.
Right.
But the inconsistency is, shouldn't they already have some kind of standard in writing, like a little piece of paper?
Standard in writing.
Right? That says, when the person comes with this, you tell them this. When a person comes with, like, this is what acceptable, this is unacceptable, this is the procedure for someone, because they're going to question you, why are you here on Guam? Are you a resident? Are you, all those standard questions.
Right.
Yet they're just like making it up while they're there, and that is what is unfair.
Leah,
I've been saying all week.
I just want to also state for the record, as you may well know if you follow the local news, the governor's former chief of staff, Anthony Mbabauta, commonly known as Tony to his friends, Tony Mbabauta was allowed to spend the night at the Pacific Star because he wasn't feeling well, and then the next morning he was able to be released from the Pacific Star without taking a test or anything. He was quote unquote assessed by public health and released into the wild.
Yeah,
but so germs, right? Again, I got to go back to that double standard. It appears that there's one set of standards for the high-ranking muckety mucks, and then another set of standards for the little people.
Yeah, and it's really unfair, and it just creates so much distrust and for people here on Guam, because now you're worried. I've had people ask me or tell me, Leah, we were following what's going on. We're really worried, and And another friend texted me yesterday. She said, your story is on my WhatsApp group, but everybody's talking. Everybody wants to know what the government's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, I want to know what the government's going to do. I've been asking for a week. Why should I even be asking? It's like common sense. Just let them go. It's not like I'm asking for a favor. It's the fact of the facts. They both tested negative. They're here for death in for a funeral in our family. What more do they want?
Mm-hmm.
They want more negative publicity? Hey, I can do that all day long on social media, and I've been doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me, I've been doing it.
So Leah,
it doesn't make sense.
Leah, so your son, right? Your son and your brother-in-law, they took the test in Vegas. Was it through a drive?
Angeles.
Oh, in Los Angeles.
It was LA. My brother-in-law who works there found out, and he'd been looking and looking because all California residents actually can get a free test. That's already been given. So he had done that. That was the swab one, but it was going to take 5 days or whatever for the results. And so his friend of us said, hey, Paul, there's a private clinic in Beverly Hills. You pay $250 and you can get the antibody blood test and get your results in 15 minutes. And he thought, oh, this is really great. So he calls me and he tells me this. I'm like, hey, can Jonathan fly over to you and then both of you can take the test together and then should everything be okay, which it should, then you can fly to Guam together. That was the whole plan. I said, great. I want him to be with his uncle anyway. That's better that they travel together. So that's what they did.
And they had a certificate and everything?
Yes. There was a letter and
Leah,
actual lab results.
Can you send me the pictures on the WhatsApp of all those documents?
Yeah.
Sure. You know what also came back later was from, I guess, the public health guy was the fact that, well, this is not an FDA approved test site or whatever. It's like, again, technically in the executive order, none of that is stated. It's not
I'm looking
clear.
at the guideline. It just says the certificate must include results from a lab accredited by the WHO or CDC that an individual tested negative. It didn't even say what kind of test.
Yeah.
Public health is aware that countries are developing a uniform certificate to satisfy legal requirements. No certificate has been pre-approved by public health at this time. Additionally, the certificate must be in English.
Yeah.
Is your certificate in English?
Yes, it is.
Is it from a WHO and CDC certified?
I'm trying to find it. It's on the WhatsApp. I'm going to send it over to you.
I mean, it was in LA, so I'm assuming that maybe.
But you know, the Joint Information Center in their press release yesterday, it talks about the mandatory quarantine, and now it says the traveler obtains a diagnostic specimen test, and that's in bold for COVID-19.
Sabrina, they probably did that because I've been making a big stink about it for almost a week. That's why that came out. That's what I was telling people. Gee, I wonder how conveniently they decided to put this article out to finally give the specific details, because people they're being pressured. This is Guam. What's happening to me? Everybody's talking about it, and they also want to know. My son has other friends that are flying, and
My mom is coming back next month.
Oh, well, better be prepared. That's why I put it out on Facebook. If you are going to be traveling, then be ready. You better make sure you have all this stuff done.
Make sure you have all your stuff done, Leah. Make sure you have all your stuff done. Jump through all the hoops, and then get ready to go into quarantine anyway.
Yeah, exactly. That's what my son was saying. Mom, it's like it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter when you come in. If they're not sure, oh, you know what? Just go to the hotel, and then we'll let you know. What is that? Well, don't say.
And then once you've checked in, it's like the old song, "You can never leave." Welcome to the hotel quarantine. Yeah.
And those are pretty tight time frames, 72 hours, depending on where you travel from.
Hey, you know what, Sabrina? I got a text from a friend of mine, and she said that she knew of someone that arrived on Guam, and they looked at the timestamp on his test. He missed it by 2 hours. They stuck him in quarantine. Seriously. They're like, oh, I'm sorry, your test is showing that you're at 74 hours, so you missed the deadline.
Here we have a comment from Ellen Leah. Understand the requirement is 14 days. Why is it so hard for the people and public to understand 14 days is not that bad? We already have been on this island quarantine for 2 months. What is 14 days? Daylight, people.
When you have the way our family is, we're only few. I don't have any family on my side. My husband's family is basically his dad and him. And so then there's me and my 2 boys, right? So the day that my mother-in-law passed away, we were literally on her deathbed. She was breathing her last breath. Paul and Jonathan, in Los Angeles, Las Vegas, we're on video calls. So we were all there together in that sense. And just telling our mom, grandmother, we love you before she passed. It was very emotional. Imagine you on the video call watching, your grandma, my poor son, I could see him crying his eyes out. His roommates are going, what is happening? Going through all the emotional stuff. And then it's like, we were trying to bring both of them out, over the last month or so because we knew she was pretty much going to be passing very soon. But knowing all these difficulties that we were going to be expecting, it was just too hard. So when she finally passed, it's like, okay, we got to get them over here now. And then to be kind, it's probably we haven't even had the time to grieve properly, seriously. And that's what's really sad. It's like, do these government officials, public health officials, have any compassion? I mean, really? You're letting some people go that even haven't had a test, but these guys have had tests, yet they're just ignoring us.
Yeah, what's interesting is the Physicians Advisory Group. They recommended to the governor just last week that they release people that are arriving from local residents that are returning to Guam, or if they came from the CNMI, or if they came from anywhere in the U.S. mainland, that they do home quarantine.
Exactly,
but yet this release comes out.
Yes, and that's what I don't understand. I mean, that's why I'm hoping that by being vocal in the media, especially today after everything else, I call out Linda DeNorsi. She better give me a good reason why those people who are managing the people in the quarantine we're appealing our case to have been ignoring us when we have every right to just say, you know what, let them go.
Mm-hmm.
They should not be there in the first place. You let other people go that haven't even had any tests at all. You don't even know if they are positive, right? So why do you keep them? That doesn't make any sense. And I challenge anyone in the government. I mean, the governor, the lieutenant governor, really, the legislature, anybody who can have a heart and say, you know what, let those two go. They don't deserve to be there. That doesn't make sense. And so this is the issue. So many people, like I said, are following this. They're scared. From my son's friends who are coming from off island for the summer, some of them are living in cities that don't even have access to testing, so they don't have a choice, right? They're going to come here already prepared to quarantine, right? Then you have people who, like, say their family, like you said, your mom's coming, whoever. Now they're all worried. They're like, what's going to happen to my family member that's going to be here in a couple of weeks? Are they also going to have the same treatment? I mean, why is this uncertainty there? There shouldn't be uncertainty, and I'm glad that the doctors came out and said that. But will the government officials, public health, listen to what the doctors are saying? I mean, really, we haven't had a serious outbreak. Thank God for that. I can understand if it was worse, the worst situation possible, but it seems to me that we've been able to contain the situation. So
I want to read a quote here from...
I wonder if these directors and deputy directors are going to be on quarantine for 14 days.
Yeah.
After serving...
After being exposed, right? Good point.
I agree with that.
I just wanted to read this, and then we got to close because we're on the top of the hour.
Okay.
But this is something I had asked the Adelup Policy Director, Carlo Branch, about why we're not having a lot of press conferences anymore. And I just want to pull a little piece of what he said here. Like any other disaster, there's a shift in operational tempo from crisis response to recovery. So we're not, at least according to the policy director, really focused so much on the crisis response. We've already moved on to the recovery. But lastly, but I should have said it first, I didn't know that you had a death in the family. Our condolences going out to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We know it's very difficult for you during this time. And don't even get me started. We talk about double standards. Don't even get me started about the double standard for funerals if you work up at Adelup.
Okay.
Okay, so we thank you for your time. I know your message has gone out there. You got my number. Send me some pics. Keep me posted, okay?
Send us a picture of the test.
Yes, I'm looking for it right now.
Okay.
I'll send it over.
Thank you, Leah.
Okay.
Take care.
Wash your hands.
I will.
Okay, bye. 8:09, we got to take a break. We'll come back, do the anthems, do news. Again, we're KUAM-FM and Agotnya, Guam. It's the KUAM News takeover of Guam's favorite containing COVID. Good morning.
Keeping you informed, KUAM News brings you Banking 671, brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, and Coast 360 Federal Credit Union. Together, we thrive.
KUAM News COVID-19 Takeover on I-94 FM is presented locally by Ambrose Inc.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
With the new challenges we're all facing, First Hawaiian Bank wants to make sure you have access to your financial world. With FHB Online and our mobile app, we hope to make banking the least of your worries. Visit fhb.com/digital.
Be healthy. Be informed with ITD. Be healthy. Be informed with ITD.
versus them.
GMH Administrator Lillian
University of Guam Dean of Nursing Margaret
There is light at the end of the tunnel.
Help is on the way from a marine medical.
Out in the public, where all are more exposed.
585 have tested positive.
To all my people on Guam. Mixed boys. Reading the newspaper in the morning, seeing all the troubles on Guam, and I know that it's my people.
I think we got to redo our montage. You know, with all the heroes, you're going to put like some of the directors, the deputy directors in there. Quarantine shepherds. I'm waiting for the memes. Like a meme of Rebecca Respicio holding the shepherd staff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Jesus reference there was a little much. But keep it up. It's entertaining. 8:17, Guam's favorite. Monday, May 18th, P-Core 2. Let's do some news here. Dive into the day's COVID-19 headlines from the KUAM News team again. Good morning, Sabrina Salas-Mantanani.
Half a day, good morning, everyone. No tests were run on Sunday by Public Health, but on Saturday, only 4 tests were ran and 0 tested positive. The number of confirmed COVID cases on Guam remains at 154, with 5 deaths and 126 recoveries. There are 2 new COVID-19 cases in the CNMI, according to a Facebook post by Commonwealth Healthcare Corporation. According to the CNMI Office of the Governor, the 2 new cases are a 31-year-old male and a 22-year-old female who are both asymptomatic and contact of previous COVID-19 cases residing in the CNMI. They are both isolated at the Kanoa Resort Facility. The CNMI now has a total of 21 confirmed COVID-19 cases with 9 active, 12 recoveries, and 2 deaths. Back to Guam, expanded testing in the meantime continues this week, with public health planning to test workers living in temporary workforce housing, people who are unsheltered or homeless, residents at the Gura Public and Elderly Housing Sites in Talafofo, and household contacts of confirmed cases. Expanded testing of frontline workers is also ongoing. The governor has extended the deadline to apply for her local disaster aid program. To date, 1,200 checks have been cut, totaling $750,000. Due to demand, the governor signed an executive order extending application period to June 12th. Programan Silapi Adzudani Tautau is being paid for by $20 million from the more than $118 million in CARES Act funding. Those who are already enrolled in the SNAP or Medicaid program do not need to apply. You are automatically eligible. Those who are within a certain threshold of the national poverty level can apply on Public Health's website. The local assistance checks range from $300 to $1,200. Social Security beneficiaries in Guam can expect their economic impact payments, also known as federal economic stimulus payments, in early June. That's the word from the Social Security Administration. In a news release, the SSA said in general the tax authority in each territory, not the IRS, will pay the EIP to eligible residents based on information the IRS will provide to the territories. Reventax Barragata office will be open for business today, but services will be limited. For example, driver's license, Guam ID, and certain business license services will not be available at DRT's main office in Barragata, but they will be available at the Agana Shopping Center's satellite office only. Until further notice, DRT's main office in Barragata will be open Monday through Friday, excluding holidays, from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. for individuals with disabilities, Menumco, and military veterans only. Then, from 9:30 a.m. to 5 p.m., services will be available for the general public. Some of those services, however, might be by appointment only. You can call 311 for more information. Golf is back, so is tennis, scuba diving, and animal grooming. Public Health has authorized the reopening of these activities effective this past Sunday. Individuals and businesses must still adhere to social distancing guidelines as previously outlined by Public Health. In response to Senator Joe St. Augustine's inquiry on the applicability of the Department of Administration's double pay provision for essential workers during the current state of emergency, Attorney General Levin Camacho breaks down his opinion. Adriana Cotero reports.
For a more blanket opinion.
As Attorney General Levin Camacho explains, they do not have enough facts, and it will all depend on agency directors' determination on specific circumstances of the agency and the status of that facility. That's according to the language of Rule 8406 of the Department of Administration's Personnel Rules and Regulations, requiring the government of Guam to pay essential employees double pay.
And in looking at the language, we identified that there are a minimum of three criteria that need to be met before any employee would be eligible for double pay.
The three elements include the first, to declare a state of emergency, which AG Camacho says this was clearly met in March. As for the two other elements, that's where the line becomes blurry and could potentially lead to far more litigation.
The two more complicated criteria would be whether an employee's facility is closed. And as we pointed out, there were three categories of government of Guam agencies: those that were deemed non-essential and closed, those that were deemed close to the public but open for operations, and those that were fully operational and open to the public. The last criteria would be whether or not, or the person was required, the status of the employee, or whether they were required to remain on duty in order to perform essential services.
AG Camacho points out that the governor's executive order called for frontliners to remain on work status and relied on the agency director's authority in identifying employees required to report to work and provide a service.
So this is not a very clear-cut thing. Everyone's going to have to go through and determine on an agency by agency level whether or not they could potentially be entitled to either double pay or compensatory time.
AG Camacho adds that this law was never written to cover pandemic responses, but rather in instances of natural disasters, and the legislature ultimately has the ability to set compensation pay.
This is just something new, so we cannot put a square peg in a round hole, and that's what they're trying to do with this existing rule. And as we pointed out, there are very tough policy decisions that our elected or other elected officials have to make. Our role has been to decide who is able to be paid under Rule 8406 and not who should be paid. That's a policy decision that the legislature needs to make.
You can view the AG's press conference streaming live on our Facebook and YouTube page. Reporting for Guam's News Network, I'm Adriana
New
Cotero.
Contracts have been signed and awarded by the General Services Agency for Hotel Santa Fe and Wyndham Garden to serve as quarantine facilities for all incoming travelers. Individuals currently being quarantined at the Pacific Star will be transferred to the new quarantine facilities today. All inbound passengers to Guam will still be subject to mandatory quarantine for 14 days. The only exemption are for passengers with a diagnostic specimen test 72 hours prior to arrival and a certified document from a medical provider attesting the results are negative. Additionally, directors, deputy directors, and GovGuam employees that were serving at the isolation quarantine facilities will be returning to their agencies. The Guam National Guard will now be assuming operations. KUAM has confirmed the new contracts were signed by Civil Defense Administrator Charles Esteves and followed protocols for emergency procurement. As reported, the previous agreements for quarantine isolation facilities with the local government went unsigned by Esteves, Attorney General Levin Camacho, Certifying Officer Marie Kenga, BBMR Director Lester Carlson, and Governor Lulian Guerrero. KUAM is waiting for copies of the new contracts for Santa Fe and Wyndham Garden. 5 sailors who returned on board the USS Theodore Roosevelt retested positive and were immediately removed from the ship. According to a statement from Navy spokesperson Commander Myers Vasquez, the 5 sailors developed influenza-like illness symptoms and executed their personal responsibility by reporting to medical for evaluation. They were placed back in isolation, their close contacts were mapped, and they are receiving the required medical care. He said while they were on board, the 5 TR sailors self-monitored and adhered to the strict social distancing protocols established by the Navy. These protocols resulted in a small number of close contacts who were also removed from the ship. quarantined and tested. Vasquez said the Navy continues to exceed CDC and COVID task force guidelines, and we continue to provide valuable data to help our nation fight the virus. The nuclear carrier Roosevelt has been in Guam since the 27th of March. It came into port after a coronavirus outbreak aboard the vessel while it was at sea. KUAM has received national media reports that number of sailors that retested positive is now at around 13. In national news today, the FDA granted emergency authorization for the first testing kit that lets people take a nasal sample at home. It's made by Austin, Texas-based Everlywell. But they are not alone in this race, as Imtiaz Tiab reports.
In laboratories around the world, the race is on for a rapid, low-cost, and most crucially, highly accurate coronavirus test. Dozens are already on the market or in the works. But concerns over accuracy continues to be a dark cloud hanging over the quick-use diagnostics. Here at the British medical startup Sense Biodetection, they believe they've achieved just that, a rapid COVID-19 test with results in under 10 minutes. It's the brainchild of molecular biologist Dr. Harry Lamble.
We use what's called a molecular chemistry. So we're targeting the genetic material of the virus, and we're amplifying it many millions of fold in order to be able to detect it.
Lamble expects the diagnostic to receive FDA approval in a few months and has partnered with the Wisconsin-based medical manufacturers Philip Medisize to produce their product as cheaply as a home pregnancy test.
So, how does it work? Well, you take a sample from inside your nostril, dip it into this chemical solution, use a pipette, draw the liquid out, pour the fluid in here, switch it on, and you're done.
At the White House, which is suffering from its own coronavirus outbreak,
It's a great test.
President Trump has given a ringing endorsement to Abbott Laboratories' rapid COVID-19 test. But the FDA is warning preliminary research has identified potential problems with Abbott's 15-minute diagnostic, including false negatives. Whatever the case, it further complicates the already complex quest for a quick, affordable, and accurate coronavirus test. Imtiaz Taib, CBS News, Cambridgeshire, England. For a quick, affordable, and accurate coronavirus test. Imtiaz Taib, CBS News, Cambridgeshire, England.
In your Banking 671 report, several local businesses and government agencies have joined forces to launch Going Online Together, or GOT, a collaboration aimed at transforming consumer behavior by promoting the use of online and digital solutions during this global pandemic. Now more than ever, online banking and payment platforms have become instrumental in continuing services during this time and are being highlighted in business and government plans to protect our communities and workers on the front line. Bank of Guam CEO Joaquin Cook says it is our hope that through sharing resources, leveraging various platforms, and reaching out to each of our individual customer segments, we will be able to create a new norm through awareness, education, and instruction, one that is easy, safe, and secure. Coast 360 President and CEO Haner Delakina meanwhile says they stand alongside GOT partners as we are all aim for the same thing, a safer community with more awareness and education of alternate transaction channels for our consumers as we fight this pandemic together. We lean on each other with a unified message of solutions that aren't only convenient, but just as safe and secure. And also on a side note, the Mangilao branch of the Bank of Guam, it reopens today, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Monday through Friday. It joins Hagåtña, Upper Tumon, Anderson, and the Tumon branch drive-through for those hours. Additionally, the Hagåtña branch and drive-through offers Manamco hours 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. Monday through Friday. All branches remain closed on Saturday. And that is your Banking 671 report, sponsored by Bank of Guam and Coast 360.
All right, thank you very much, Sabrina. We reported on the Revenue Tax partial reopenings. I just got a message here.
Yes.
Chaos at Revenue Tax on second floor of Hagåtña Shopping Center.
Oh my goodness.
DRT so unorganized. Manamco pissed and yelling with staff. Security had to be called in.
Oh yeah. So for the Manamco, it's 8 a.m. to 9:30.
Right, and so just if you guys are over there at Hagåtña Shopping Center, the person who sent me the message, the older gentleman, doesn't know how to take the pictures. So if you guys have any pics or anything you want to send them over, we'd love to give that some coverage.
So it's a bunch of our islands Manamco just waiting in line?
Yeah, from what we're able to learn from these text messages, Bree.
And it's not open?
It just is unorganized.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to see some hiccups, you know. I just wish that, if they could detail some of those quarantine shepherds over there to kind of like guide the flock on which way to go, maybe.
Or they might have to be in 14-day quarantine.
Yeah, that's a good question we want to ask today is these directors and deputy directors, are they going to be put in a 14-day quarantine?
Right. Because I remember when this all started, there was a reporter who actually went to, I think it was one of the quarantine facilities, I won't say which one at the time, but then this person had to be quarantined, home quarantined for 14 days because they went there.
They went there, right.
Yeah.
Good point, Bree. It's a good question to ask. 8:30, let's go to the phones where we have the legislative man and talk about all the right committees. The legislative chair on medical, tourism, and justice, and of course, land to Senator Therese Terlahi jumping onto the show. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Sabrina and Chris. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, pretty eventful show. Welcome to the program.
Yes, thanks. Again, you guys are doing great. Getting a lot of information out there. Appreciate that.
I know that we don't really hear, we haven't heard about any confirmation hearings during the time of the COVID, but I think we're reaching that point where you've got some confirmation stuff on your table, Senator?
Yeah, there's actually several that have been put on hold during this process, and we're supposed to happen during March. Okay, so the biggest one I think is this: it's a Superior Court judge vacancy, and Dana Gutierrez has been nominated. So her confirmation hearing will be this Wednesday at 1 p.m. So if anyone wants to testify on that hearing, please, you have to contact my office because it's going to be a virtual hearing. And the other confirmations we will be having are to fill vacancies on the Guam Land Use Commission. That would be Dr. Anita Enriquez, the one from UOG, Anita Borja Enriquez. We also have a vacancy on the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission. She's been reappointed. This is Louisa Westling, Ancestral Lands. And we also have one for the reappointment of Dr. Nadine Cepeda. She's a marriage and family therapist representative to the Guam Board of Allied Health Examiners. And we have an appointment for the Guam Historic Preservation Review Board. This is an alternate representative. So this review board, they have regular representatives, and then they have alternates for each position. So Edwin Regis, he works at the Bureau of Planning. He's been nominated for this alternate position.
And is this the guy that's going to replace Dave Lotz, Senator?
Well, that's what the governor announced at her press conference, that he would be replacing Dave Lotz, but Dave Lotz holds a regular position, not an alternate position. So we're going to have a confirmation for him for the position he's been appointed as an alternate. And I have not received a nomination to replace Dave Lotz in the regular position yet.
So are you saying, kind of in a nice way, that someone messed up and nominated and telling Dave that he was going to get booted out of this board?
Well, he might still. I don't know their intentions. So
I thought that was a letter.
He got a letter from the governor.
Yeah, he sent a copy to me. He received a letter from the governor saying he would not be reappointed, but I'm still holding out hope. I'm hoping they're going to reconsider that. He's actually been a very good member of this review board, and he's knowledgeable. He spent years and years, getting up to speed with historic preservation on Guam, with the sites that are at highest risk, which is what I really appreciate about his presence on the board. And he's not afraid to speak out about it, which is, of course, crucial. When I have these confirmation hearings, it's one thing that I practically beg them, we're going to confirm you, and after that, we can't pull you out, right? We don't have that type of authority. And
too bad.
So, we got to take your word for it almost. We can look at your record, but most of them don't have records in these positions. So at least Dave's got a record in this position. We know what he would do. And so I appreciate that very much.
Right.
That he's willing to be vocal, he's the one who pointed out to us that Magua had been cleared. Yes, and those things, it's not hard. It's not easy to do. So I very much appreciate people who are willing to act on these boards and act independently.
Man, it's kind of a burn deal that they sent him. I don't know how to describe the way the letter was worded, but it definitely wasn't a nice letter. So they sent a letter to Dave saying, hey, we're going to replace you, but they couldn't even get that right. So you're saying that the person they nominated to replace him is actually being nominated for a different position. So where do these
That's
things?
correct, but
Where do they come from,
You never
Senator?
know. It might change. Pardon?
Where do they? Is this something that comes out of? Is it like DPR, or is this something from the legal counsel at Adelup, or?
Oh, I'm assuming Adelup because that's where the nominations come from.
Okay.
So I don't know, but yeah, I think that they might still,
Well, obviously, I don't want him on the board anymore. But Senator, I got to ask, do you think there's a connection? Because everyone is putting two and two together out here, and I think we're coming out with the correct answer. And that how vocal a critic Dave Lotz is, does that have anything to do in your mind with him being replaced?
I hope not. I'm not a mind reader, but I certainly hope not. Of course, I mean, if that is the reason, that is the worst reason. But but I don't know. But I do know what he has done, and that I am very grateful. Very grateful. And he's willing to put in hard work. These board positions are voluntary for the most part. You don't get paid. And so it takes a lot of work to get yourself informed enough to actually be vocal. You have to know what you're talking about.
I'll say. What about health, Senator? Can we just touch base?
Yes.
Health committee chair. What are you working on? What are you looking
A
at?
lot of things going on, of course. We've got past issues that are still with us, as you've talked about all morning. And then we've got the future, right? We're trying to, my goal, we had an oversight hearing with public health recently, and my goal is, what is it going to look like going forward? And if we are going to rely on the Department of Public Health to ensure that we are all safe while we open these businesses, while we move forward, what's it going to look like? And are we really confident that we can do that safely, right? And I think every state is struggling with this, and you've seen what they've done. And so I asked our own public health, what are we doing? So one thing that I discovered, and so I'll just, they're doing a great job in many areas. I'm going to talk about just the areas that I'm concerned about. And a lot of this has to do with where are we going to prioritize this CARES funding, right? Because the CARES funding is supposed to be what ensures that we can move forward safely. We're supposed to shore up all our systems so that we can do that. So one of the things that we discovered at the hearing is that these opening plans that are submitted to public health's not really approving them. They're just receiving them, reviewing them. Maybe they give suggestions, but they're not exercising any authority like to say no or to approve. That's one thing that I was surprised about. So we've got industry-wide plans being submitted, and that's, when you submit your plan and the governor's executive order lists you down, then you can open. So that's one thing. So I want them to do more to ensure that these plans are actually good, that they will protect us, right? That they are going to make sure that we are safe. The second thing that we discovered at the hearing was that the Division of Environmental Health, and I know you guys have done stories on this. This is the Division of Public Health that does inspections of facilities, make sure that they comply with the food code, those types of requirements, and they have been challenged for years. They have very few staff, not able to do inspections like we like. Well, with all these new, opening type rules, they told us they are not able to do inspections. I mean, they've got zero additional personnel to do more inspections or even to keep up with the ones that they were supposed to be doing in the past. So that's a huge problem for me. I feel like that's exactly an area where I'm hoping we can, get the administration to shift some funds over there so that we can feel confident that we are doing the right thing by allowing. For example, you just discussed Revenue Tax. When Revenue Tax opens, if it's not safe, who's going to say that, right? I want somebody to be able to get out in the community and say, no, your plan was good, but in reality, this does not look good at all. And in fact, you're putting these Manamco at risk.
So Senator, would that be the Environmental Health Division? Because you're right, and talking about these reopenings in PCOR 2, when we asked the question, well, we reopen all these places, but who's doing the enforcement? Nobody knows.
The people.
That's correct. That's exactly what we discovered as well. So Revenue Tax has authority under their business license authorizations to, I think, those who, to go and inspect and we were told at our hearing that revenue tax was concentrating on bars and maybe restaurants, or bars maybe, or I don't remember, bars and restaurants, but certain establishments, while public health then concentrated on restaurants, because they had always been inspecting restaurants, right? So they continued to do that. And so I know they will continue to do that. The problem is the pace, the number of staff. So I'm hoping that we can shore up that division a little bit. We'll see, with either CARES Act money, or prioritize a little bit of the budget, because I just think this is what we need to show the people of Guam, that we are putting in systems of taking care of ourselves. You know what I mean? So we will not reach another, pandemic or outbreak, right? That we can lock those things down right away. The other one, of course, at the hearing we talked about was the tracing. This is, everybody across the nation agrees, if you can't trace, then you shouldn't open, because you're asking for trouble. So you need to be able to trace quickly. And so what I'm urging public health, they told us all their plans to increase tracing. They actually are getting, new software or systems to help do this. So they're working on it. But the issue for me is, I think the public still needs to know more information. And I know you've had Dr. Lombard on your show, but the questions that he asked, that he wants public health to answer, for me they're excellent questions, because there's questions such as, what failed? How did this person get the virus? Was it because they weren't using masks, because they went to a certain place, because this place, was not being cleaned? What is it? So when we can get those answers, we can empower our community, and our community, we've seen, is excellent if they get the right information. So I want them to know that information. So I'm trying to push public health that's the information we want to know. 2 positive cases, it almost doesn't mean much to us if we can't figure out how did that happen? What are we doing wrong? And we need to know quick. I told them real time. We want real time, right? That's the only way. Otherwise, my goodness, I do not want to see, GMH be overwhelmed again. I hope that's not our plan. So I'm trying to push it. That's supposed to be the plan for every state, that you're supposed to make sure you're able to trace quick and stop it in its tracks. And that's the goal. So that was another issue. I think they need to get out more information. They need to give us more of the details. I think, and I told them, I think it's very clear they can do that without violating HIPAA. So I'm asking them to work on that more. And I know that you guys have also been asking that.
Yeah. Right. Senator, I had a couple questions as it relates to the Department of Public Health and also the governor's superpowers. So she's able to, she has this tier 3 tier clinics, you know what I'm talking about, FHP.
The cure setup that they had, yes.
Yeah, and so you have these tier 2 clinics, and there's no agreement, no MOU. I know that Speaker Barnes had been trying to get to the bottom of that, but there's no agreement in place. There's CARES Act funding according to this budget breakdown by the government that allocates X amount of $7 million, I think it is, or $6 million. But then you also have this contract with a company that's unsigned, HSP. Public Health didn't sign it. And I'm just wondering, why would we need a contract? Well, we have a contract with HSP to provide all these different services, but yet we don't have anything in place for these 3 clinics. Is that something that that's on your radar, or just kind of doesn't seem to jive?
Since the beginning. So when they first announced their, as you know, we're only seeing contracts now that you guys have sent in FOIAs, and but we've asked for them. When they first announced their cure setup, I've asked, well, how does that actually work? When you say these people are in your tier 2, do you have a contract? So I was told, no, there's no contract. So it's never really been clear to me what the setup is. But of course, the doctors they're all on the advisory group. So but I'll tell you, I've received several calls, maybe in the last couple weeks, 3 weeks, that now that they were more concerned about what really the agreement was. And the bottom line is, if it I'm assuming I told these clinics, they're going to have to take it up with the governor. It's between them. They made an agreement or whatever they did. That's between them and the governor. But when it starts to impact our health care, then I think that's a very serious issue for the entire community, right? That, for example, one of the clinics telling me that their business, was kind of diverted, and they became a COVID, testing place, COVID treatment place, and then the other patients were not coming in, and so that has actually affected their business so much that they might be having to let go of healthcare personnel, right? Mm-hmm. At a time when Guam is in dire need of healthcare personnel. So those are the serious implications of getting to the bottom of that. And I definitely agree. We need to get to the bottom. I don't want to interfere with their contracting or anything like that, but I do think it has had serious repercussions, and we just need to make sure. One of the things we're supposed to come out of this with all this, federal funding is we're supposed to shore up our healthcare system. So I do not want to end up in a situation where we have less doctors than we started off with, less nurses than we started off with, or nurses who are quitting on us because they didn't like how they were treated during the emergency, right?
Wow, yeah.
So
it's a reality.
Yeah, that's the reality, and we need to take care of that. I think that's serious, and so when I look at the funding, if you look at public health, what they're getting out of this CARES, they're only actually getting money that they've already spent, and nothing, it looks like to me, according to this plan from BBMR, going forward. So that's what I've asked them to redo. Like, BBMR says they hadn't submitted anything going forward, and I'm like, what is up with that? They have to. You are who we are relying on. So you've got to, step up and submit a plan going forward. We're also looking at huge amounts, or a large amount of people who are not covered by health insurance anymore due to unemployment, right? So they might get unemployment pay, but we need to take care of the health side, right? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, end result, they go to GMH, they're not going to be able to pay. And so we need to either cover it up front with, coverage under Medicare, MIP, or Medicaid, or MIP, or or we're just going to pay it all out at GMH, and then people are going to ask us, why are we subsidizing GMH? That's why, because we have now a large part of our population without any coverage at all. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very serious, because of course when you're not covered with insurance, then you don't go to the clinics for early care, right? And they're coming in with more dire care. So that's the big picture. I saw we had a oversight with the Department of the Office of Technology, right? Yeah. And even that, so I'm looking at this CARES funding. They received no CARES funding according to this BBMR plan, and
you couldn't get some iPads or some laptops, or
what I'm looking at them for is like when we have this whole public welfare, you can apply for SNAP, you can apply for Medicaid, MIP, all of that. It's not an online system, right? You can download your forms, but then you got to go drop the box. It was not user friendly, I think, as much as it could be. And I think we've got to get this internet capability out to our communities. We've been talking about this for years.
Right.
Years we've talked about it, putting them in the mayor's office, the schools, so that they, again, could be accessible to the community all around them. Our schools are built right next to the villages. So that kind of thing, it was very troubling for me to find out OTEC receives no money to coordinate this type of putting all these agencies online. We're doing it through the agencies, and so it's pretty much what each agency asks for. And so I just want a big picture, coordinated response, and one that's fast. So one of the things I think I put in one of the budget bills was that we're going to have an online central website, so that all of this is for transparency, right? All of our government meeting notices are going to be on one website. You don't have to go all over to every agency's website to find out whether they're having a meeting, and all of the meetings would be on there for everyone to see and know and be informed and participate. taken, I think, over 2 years to get a central website up. And so they've told me there are very many challenges and that they're very close to getting this up. But I'm just really hoping that, our response going forward with this federal funds has to be quicker. We have to get our people capable of, getting on the internet. I think it's going to help them with job loss. They can, look for jobs. They can train themselves. And it's going to help our students. And we know that these impacts will go for a very long time.
Just talking about the
yeah.
the accessibility, I was talking with a teacher over the weekend, and they were saying that about less than 30% of their students are turning in this distance learning stuff because they just don't have internet. And so there's obviously connectivity issues, and I don't know what if that's what kind of thing you're talking about, is providing the access.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the students. We know they were not able, many of them no access, not only DOE students, but UOG students. And I think that tells us what our entire, system looks like. And I just don't find that there is any reason why our villages cannot be connected, and I think everybody says they're working on it, and I think they need to get that done. We've got millions of dollars going to DOE, right, for upgrading their capacity to do this. We've got $12 million at least going to the governor's office specifically for educational purposes. And then we've got money, going, we were supposed to have these programs through, the mayor's offices. We were supposed to be able to set up, connectivity. The libraries, they're talking about setting it up through the libraries with MiFi. That's what OTEC talked about. But I remember years ago talking with UOG, they were going to be the hub for the Pacific, for an education hub for an actual cable. And it was a huge deal. And I said, well, I hope that this cable, that you being the hub, will allow us to get this out to DOE and the community from DOE, even if we have to use parking lots at first. But this day and age, our communities are small. We should be able to do this. We should be the shining example of doing this. And I'm hoping I want to lift these people up to, if they need something from the government, they can get it immediately. Most of the calls I get through my office is they need assistance with public agencies, right? They need something from CLTC, and CLTC was not responding. They needed something from, public health, and they just couldn't get through, I know you guys have talked about these issues too, and you do the same that type of work also. So it's just connecting to the public agency should be the easiest thing that we empower our people to do. Get answers right away.
No, I just wanted to ask about this contract for Perlis Court, and if you had any concerns with that. I think Lillian Posadas was on the air last week regarding it. This Perlis Court was for staff, right? Nurses, maybe. But, it was 17 fully furnished condos.
I'm not familiar, and I haven't looked at the contract itself, but I'll tell you what I know on that is that since before they even opened the SNU, they told me they had a plan for those nurses and doctors and healthcare staff who would be exposed to COVID at the SNU, that they would have a place to stay, right? That they were going to be offered that, so that they did not have to go back to their family. I thought, wow, that's great advanced thinking, right? Where we were on it. I never ever could get any of the details on it, and then I know we had quite a time trying to find out why the nurses at GMH, emergency room, ICU, were not being extended that offer as well. And then, so, if it's finally determined that, okay, we've extended the offer to all of those people. So, I don't know, the timing. I'm telling you, we are going through a lot of what the media is going through. When we ask for information, we get bits and pieces, and it's hard to get the big picture, which is very frustrating. And it makes us want to,
flip your desk,
say negative things. But we need to move forward, and I'm trying to move forward. And there's so many things I could go back and talk about, but I just want to move forward. But man, I want to move forward smart. I want to do this in the smartest way we can. I want Guam to shine. I want to show that we know what we are doing here. We know how to take care of our people.
Yeah.
And I think that's got to be our focus. Opening business for just the sake of opening business is not as important to me as we're going to open it because we're going to take care of people, because they need these businesses and because we've proven that we can do it safely, right? Mm-hmm. And that we are going to do it safely. And if they're not going to comply with the safety measures, then we will not allow it, because I want our Manamco to get a life back, right? I don't want them to be on forever lockdown, and that's going to really take our entire community to make them safe. And I just think if we think of that as the goal, I think that's been our goal all this time, and that's why, stay at home has been successful.
Stay home!
Yeah, because we love our Manamco, and we don't want to harm them. And so I just think we should do the same, opening up the businesses, Is this going to keep our Manamco safe? And we build up our agencies the same way. Everything we do has to be geared towards getting caretakers to be able to work from home, stay at home, getting, students to be able to learn from home if that's the new norm.
Senator, I wanted to interrupt here, but you were successful in the override of Bill 333. Has there been any discussion on the override of Bill 326?
That is the pay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I don't want to speak for her, but I'm pretty sure Senator the Vice Speaker is working on a different bill.
I see. Okay.
I don't know, but I know that I'm going to say too that has been nothing but frustration. This whole discussion on pay, and that's one of the things I just had a discussion with Public Health a couple of days ago. I wanted them to tell me, have all your nurses been given the differential time, at least, right? Have they all been given this? Because I've been receiving calls. So they swore that at the time that we talked, they had all been given their differential time, and that they had come up with this overtime plan. They were all going to get their overtime. So I was hoping that, the nurses at Public Health and all the staff at Public Health, they would at least get their overtime and their differential pay that they're entitled to. Now, the double pay issue is really the most frustrating one, because that's exactly why we were in session longer than we expected during that time. If you remember, we could not get anything definitive from anyone, I think, at the time, as to, what about the double pay? Why is this? What is the effect of this on the double pay? And I know the AG said that no one had received double pay, but that's not what we are told, right? We are told that there are employees. They tell us, no, I always receive double pay, or whatever.
Right,
so that's something new. I'll say that if that information I would like to get clarification on. Because, and we know that, GPA was getting double pay. We know that for sure. And so even if you look across the agencies, it's not going to look fair, and it's never going to look fair, right? And so
and I think Senator, we had spoke with the husband of a nurse earlier in the show, and he had said that, what's frustrating for these frontliners, a lot of them have received the double pay.
That's right.
In prior emergencies.
This morning, I heard him. He said his wife had received double pay after typhoons.
So when we talk about the differential pay or the overtime, I mean, if I'm an essential worker going into this, and I know that I'm going to shield up and I'm going to go out there because the COVID, but it's okay because I'm out here risking it and I'm getting the double pay, and then later on to find out, no double pay, it's a 25%, it's a 10%. I mean, it's really an insult to trying to push this. And
right. This is the thing. Communication really would have served us much better back then. Week one, when, we were told some employees were going to stay home and still get paid. We were told some employees were going to work from home. And then we were told some employees would have to show up and do some stuff, right? And we, of course, know the frontliners. They weren't even discussed. They were just assumed they were going to show up and do their stuff. But I remember calling DOA and asking him, what is the plan for this? And I always try to call and make sure, if I can just be assured they're working on it, then I'm, I don't have to harass anyone. But
no, please harass people.
I was assured they were they were working on it and they had a plan. But the issue was that took a long time to actually get, into an executive order, into something that we could actually deal with, and then be told at that point that, it doesn't go retro, and then be told, after that it conflicts with potential double pay, and then be told now that the Attorney General all along, kind of, I don't know, it's troubling for me because I thought one of the things I heard during press conferences was we're working with the Attorney General.
Right.
And
I hear
so
that a lot.
I always figured that they're going to figure out all that kind of, technical stuff, which is really the difficult thing to do, and it's just silly to me. If we're in an emergency, sorry, maybe that's not the right word, but if we're in an emergency and we're not going to consult our lawyers, right, on the top, of course we're looking for trouble. I mean, we're going to get into a mess. So I just feel like you've seen it with this. Now we're going to redo our procurement of quarantine hotels.
Oh, Lord.
It makes no sense.
Wow.
Now we're going to redo our whole fee structure. Weeks or months later.
Senator, we used to play.
We need a solution and we need to move forward. And I don't know. We have laws in place so that these things are decided in advance, not after the fact. So that's what's very frustrating.
It's so frustrating. It reminds me we used to play kickball when I was young, and then we'd kick it, and if it didn't go the way you wanted it to go, you'd be like, "No, do over DC, don't count."
Mulligan. Is that in golf?
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually, I'm all for fixing it. Let's fix it, whatever. But yeah, we just,
And let's also try and make sure we do it right the first time too, right, Senator?
Absolutely, let's do it right the first time. This is a lot of things too. And if we're talking about policy, then that's where transparency, discussion really helps, because you can tell me, we put this into motion, but if you tell me why and why you didn't do it any other way, then we're not going to waste any time going down those roads. If it's very clear, right, that there's a reason we can't go down that road. And that's what really has not been clear with this, the double pay. I worry now. Now we're getting into money issues, right? I think this is an after the fact thing. Now we're into money issues, whether we get reimbursed by FEMA money or we have to use the CARES Act money. And if we use the CARES Act money for, one thing, then we absolutely do not have CARES Act money to get this environmental health division at public health up to speed, right?
Yes.
That's my problem. It's like whatever we're going to take out of CARES Act, it should be easy and the governor gets full discretion, but that's our funding to move forward for Guam to keep us all safe.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
I would, if we have another avenue to fund,
FEMA.
pay through
Seems
FEMA,
like FEMA,
then
right? Yeah.
it sounds great to me, right? That sounds like a way to go. So we'll see. Yeah.
We got to run. We're at the top of the hour, but I wanted to share a comment with you before you go.
Sí.
Por favor, Senator Teresa Lahi Hungan, harass all of them.
See, you know what? To be honest, you guys, I don't like to harass people, but they think I am harassing them when I ask questions, which really bothers me.
Yeah.
Because
I hear you.
A question, and that's
Welcome to our
really
world.
all we need is we just need the answers, and we need them fast, without attitude, please. And that's what I would like. And that's
Leave the attitude at Adeloop, okay? Leave the attitude at Adeloop.
If we need to get to the solutions fast.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Oh,
Esta, okay. Wash your hands.
Take care. I like that. Leave
Without
the
attitude. You're giving me attitude? You're giving me attitude. They are. They're giving a lot of attitude. Okay. 9:03. We'll take a little break, and we're going to keep it at the halls of the Guam Congress Hall and get Speaker Tina Munia Barnes. She's working on a bunch of stuff, too. So we'll check with her. We're also going to try and get a hold of Daphne Shimizu as we're getting reports from the field about the craziness that's going down at Revan Tax.
Yeah, and this is Barragata. There's a lot of people out there. I've seen the pictures of the line, and I think I read that it's not open for driver's license. It's only in Agana. I'm not sure what the Manumco are looking at. Oh, we have something from.
Oh, sir, can we pop these up here on
Tapao.
Okay, go ahead.
Entrance into the Department of Revenue and Taxation will only be permitted utilizing the outer northbound lane of Route 16 Army Drive, Barrigada. Exit from the parking lot is being routed to utilize the traffic intersection located on Route 16 and J. Cruz Street adjacent to the Department of Revenue and Taxation. Motorists are asked to please proceed with caution while traveling to or around the area and to expect delays. So basically, it is one big mess over at Department of Revenue and Taxation in Barrigada, the traffic.
All right. We're going to pop up the pictures now, Bree.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, what did you expect?
It's open today. And 8:30, did I say 8:30 to 9:30 is the Minumco hours?
Yeah.
And then from 9:30 to 5 p.m. it's for general services.
All right. So I kind of saw this coming. We're going to try and get Daphne on the line
Did you
here.
show the pictures of people in line?
Yeah, we
All
are
the
right
people
there.
in line?
Yep.
Yeah, I think we need Daphne just to kind of clarify like what's going on up there in Barrigada.
I mean, you know, it's good to see GPD on the scene helping with the traffic and all, but look at that.
That doesn't look like 6 feet apart, too.
It doesn't. I'm curious, though, with the 6 feet apart thing, is that within households or... Because, you know, if I'm standing in line, I mean, I really try not to take my kids anywhere, even now. But, you know,
I
we're
think it's
in
when
our...
you're out shopping, you stay away. Like, I mean, even
Right.
at Payless, you see everything's marked. I mean, most
Correct.
stores have it's taped off, the 6 feet distancing. Like right here, you would think that. Well, I wonder if they probably just didn't realize it would be this many people, because that's a lot of people over at.
I mean, are you kidding?
Revenue
People have
Tax.
been asking if DMV has
That
been
is
open
not
since like
6
the
feet.
second day of COVID.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back with Speaker Barnes. It's 9:06. This is Containing COVID. KUAM FM. I got any Guam?
Here, I just got a message.
Okay.
Only now the guard announces to practice social distancing and then walks away. Okay, that's from a friend who's there.
Okay, good. So we have a friend there. Nice. We got a snitch patrol. Sorry.
No, it's somebody.
It's a concerned citizen.
Yeah.
I know. Okay. Good morning.
Keeping you informed, KUAM News brings you Banking 671, brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, and Coast 360 Federal Credit Union. Together, we thrive.
KUAM News COVID-19 Takeover on I-94 FM is presented locally by Ambrose Inc.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
With the new challenges we're all facing, First Hawaiian Bank wants to make sure you have access to your financial world. With FHB Online and our mobile app, we hope to make banking the least of your worries. Visit fhb.com/digital.
Be healthy. Be informed with ITD.
blessing the government of Guam for the people of Guam. It's containing COVID. Harassment never sounded so good. Hey, good morning. 18th day of May, we're in P-Core 2. Just 4 tests. Just 4 tests. Ah! 4 people tested for COVID-19 over the weekend. 4.
Could mean that, not people aren't getting sick.
I'm not sure what's happening. I almost feel like they're like, we just don't know. Don't get tested because we're trying to reopen the island here. You're getting in the way of us reopening the island, everybody. But there is some community testing that's going to be happening this week. They're going to be checking temporary workers like H2 workers, barracks. Also homeless people. Not sure how they're going to do that. Maybe we had a homeless shelter instead of plans for a homeless shelter that always gets scrapped. And then the government officials get defensive when you ask about the homeless shelter, the invisible homeless shelter that doesn't exist. They get mad about it.
It's going to be a hardened homeless shelter now.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It's concrete. Yeah, it's a fancy way. It's how government people, they don't even say it's going to be cement. They're like, it's a hardened facility. Anyway, 912, that's what it means is, guys, it's concrete, okay? 912, let's go to the phones. There's Speaker Tina Munia Barnes on the line joining the show. Good morning, Speaker.
Alpha Day and Manana Situas to you, Sabrina and Chris. Alpha Day, Guam. Many of God's blessings for you, all of you guys here today. And if you allow me, I just want to share with you that I want to say I agree with your earlier comments that our frontliners deserve to be compensated for all their hard work and their commitment to our community. And as we look at the original projections and we look at our numbers or our cases today, I have to say that our frontliners are all working collectively, and they played a key role to make things happen. And I just want to say that they deserve to be compensated. I know you guys know that this past weekend I did hear from a handful of our frontliners expressing their frustration about the pay situation, and I want to share with you too that based on the research that I have worked with my policy team on, I'm going to continue to tell you with the briefings that we have weekly with the White House and my calls to the National Conference of State Legislators. It is noted that the utilization of the CARES Act can be used to pay the frontliners this rightful compensation. And I think I just want to also share what I've said before to you and to other folks, that I don't want to pit one against the other, and I want to point out that I've never been a lawyer, and I've always said that if you get lawyers in a room, you can get different interpretations, but if the Attorney General's statement says that the current law doesn't allow for us to pay for our frontliners their rightful compensations because they didn't meet some 3 criteria for double pay, I want to share to the both of you that we as an island are in a state of an emergency, and this emergency, and nobody's ever planned for this to happen, and nobody ever wrote the law anticipating to respond to this kind of situation. And as such, I want to share with the both of you that I did take the time to speak to my colleague and his team and look for a proposal that can address this. And as in everything that I do, sometimes it's working with the community and working with the stakeholders who can see how ideas and solutions can be facilitated too. So I want to share with you that I did have the opportunity to speak to the representative from the Guam Federation of Teachers, Mr. Robert Koss, And I want to say thank you to him for coming to the table and willing to work with myself and Senator Pito and his office to work on all the solution. And I must say, Bree and Chris, that we did do a draft this weekend. And this morning, Mr. Koss got back to my office and saying that the union is very positive, and I would say, I guess, at least pleased on a proposal that we worked on. And I want to share with you that in a nutshell, this bill that's in draft form that's in front of me right now would literally say that for every hour that an unclassified frontliners worked during PCOR 1, which is between the dates of March 20th, when the government of Guam was shut down, to Mother's Day, that they will get 1 hour annual leave for every hour that they worked. And these employees during the fiscal year can convert up to 100 hours for a lump sum payment, and the remaining 120 hours can be cashed out as normal upon separation. I also want to share to the both of you that we also took the time to bounce this idea with the Phil government of Guam employees, and they had shared some recommendations that I also include the unclassified employees as well. And as much as I believe that everyone should get what they deserve, I looked over the veto message for Bill 326, and I know that we cannot simply afford that. And I understand that the governor can work on using the funds for the CARES Act for this, but as case law has dictated, even during prior administrations, I want to say it was during the Camacho administration, this branch unfortunately cannot mandate the use of the CARES Act, and it's the governor's position to utilize to expend the funds accordingly as she seems necessarily. And I really hope that the governor does take time to look at this and see what she can do. And, I can only make recommendations, Sabrina and Chris, but I just want to share that with this idea that it is a positive step moving forward. It's a way of stepping outside the box, getting creative, bringing in the parties, bringing the idea and solution to help those frontliners who definitely deserve this, but just seeing a way that we can help and make it a win-win for everybody. So that's one idea.
Right.
And then, of course, that I want to say we also introduced Bill 327 months ago, which would take, again, that idea was to take the war claims reimbursement to allow for all the tax returns or to respond to the COVID-19. And media articles have stated that we should be getting the money in a couple of days. So that's $12 million. $12 million.
$12 million.
But it's. I want to say that with that, there's pros and cons here, and again, as we look forward in bringing these proposals and these legislations, we always got to look at the pros and cons to the issue. And for this matter, we use war claims, we can get reimbursed by FEMA, which can take up anywhere between a period of soon to 2 years. So if we use the CARES Act money, we don't get reimbursed, but then we have that in the bank now, Mm-hmm. So I know it hasn't been an easy decision for Magahaga, but I know essentially it comes down to fiscal policy, and we can make dollars work if, which is really scarce right now, and we need to see how we can stretch as much as we possibly can. But I know that hopefully I can work closely with my colleagues and work out some minor details and introduce by today or the latest tomorrow morning these efforts, and I hope everyone can support it. And I want to share with you that I will be talking to the rest of my colleagues about this issue and see how we can facilitate this moving forward. I do know that we have a session at the end of the month. I know that core is up, but we need to move faster, quicker than the opportunity for holding emergency session is also there. We've been really hard at work, Bree and Chris, and I just want to share with you that our work hasn't stopped here. I also have other bills that I've been working with my colleagues. Senator Mary Torres and I had been working on modernizing rules and regulations as it relates to the customs and quarantine. I know that their enabling legislation, was written in the 1940s and it wasn't enacted until the 1970. And we have been working closely with the Customs and Quarantines Office. I want to thank all the officers there and folks from Ike Pareto to Ray Bloss and John Rick Mendiola. And I just want to say that, even working closely with the Coast Guard, Senator Torres had asked me to meet with the Coast Guard back in January and to push these efforts on how things come in and how we have to work through our borders. And I just want to say thank you for her invaluable knowledge at her time with the port, and then her working closely with me and working closely with Customs and our policy team so that we can literally bring up to speed the rules and regulations for Customs. And they've been working on this for a long time, and we hope to get an introduction of that today also.
Speaker,
that doesn't stop there.
Sorry, can we go back to the bill that you had in draft form that would give the frontliners and essential workers compensatory annual leave, right, is what you're trying to do?
Yes, annual
right.
leave.
So,
not CTO, because CTO you have to use right away.
Right, annual leave, correct. So, Senator, in talking with Robert Cost of the Guam Federation of Teachers, would this bill stop their efforts with the lawsuit moving forward, or are they still doing the lawsuit and this is just a solution that you're working on? Or have we got to that part of the conversation yet?
Chris, I can't answer that right now, but in my sincere efforts of working close to them and calling them in and working with my colleague and bringing our policy team even over the weekend, I'm hoping that the community knows that it's a sincere effort. I called GFT in because I knew that as they continue to drive this, it's okay. How do we come up with a solution to help address these concerns, but more importantly, to see what we have? And again, in the attempt of sharing this sincerely, I must at least try. And I'm hoping that with the efforts moving forward and then working with my colleagues and sharing this draft with them and seeing how fast we can work with and seeing who's going to engage. The magic number in the legislature is 8, and I'm going to push to with the 8 and work with my majority whip to see how we can facilitate this bill moving forward. But again, that it was a solution. It was an idea. We brought some players in, and I'm hoping that the administration will engage with us. I'm hoping that my colleagues will engage, and I'm hoping that with the positive response that we heard this morning, I know that decision came in at 5 o'clock, and when my staff called me that GFT sent over the remarks, I said, good, let's move forward. And in that effort, Chris, again, this is what we're here to do, is to literally try and think outside that box, to be creative, to find the solutions, and then to show the community and to show the frontliners that we really do care and that we really are working on this. And again, it's going to take a concerted effort. And for me, I have to look to getting that magic number of 8 onto the floor. But I also want to share with you that even with those efforts and looking at trying to protect our community and trying to look at, as the governor continues to work with, we are in PCOR 2 now, but look at opening it up and bringing our number one economic driver back to where it should be. I know the timelines look very scary. People say it's going to take 2 years. It's like, what can we do to help protect Guam and help bring our tourists back? And Senator Pito and I were working on a bill that would require testing at the airport. It's still being vetted right now, and this would hopefully end the need for the hundreds of rooms that our government is paying for daily. Again, we are still working on some details, minor details, to get that bill ready today. And I just want to thank the chairman for public safety for this innovative approach, given that our main industry is tourism, and every day we close, you folks know that we lose a lot of our invaluable resources, and we got 21,000 jobs plus that have been gravely affected. And I need our community to know that I know that industry wants to go back to work. They call us consistently. They call our office, and but I need to know that we want to do something responsibly. So testing at the airport might be one of that. We're still trying to look at the whether the constitutionality or working with the feds, if that's going to have any hiccups. But it's something that we want to work to move forward and making sure that the protocols and the protections in place. So again, working closely with the airport, trying to get their buy-in and seeing what we can do. That was something that we thought of too. And I just want to share with you, Bree and Chris, that we as policy makers are still working and we will continue to look for solutions, even if we have to step outside the usual parameters.
Right.
But we need to work hard, and I just want to know that I must say that with the briefing and the information that we got last week, all my colleagues, the majority, if not all of them, were there listening, and I want to thank the senators, Sabina Paris and Senator Luis Muña, for turning in their questions, their additional questions to the administration. It was in no way.
How many questions did you get, Speaker?
I think we got. Let me double check, but I know.
Because I know you said that you and Senator Regine had like 66 or something like that.
Well, you know what, Chris, that was for the joint region, the Guam build-up presentation. And in the efforts of doing a presentation and getting the information out and saving time, that format that I have utilized 2 times over, and this I think is possibly my 3rd time, is to make sure that if there's any other question that is out there, including from my colleagues, that they bring it in, we send it out, we get it recorded, it gets put on the media, and it's a chance to get ahead of everything, every question, and then it's recorded so that if anybody says, well, this wasn't done or that wasn't done, there is not just proof, but a better understanding and an outlet where people can go to look at. And I must thank the Committee on Rules for making the legislative channel accessible to the community and bringing a lot of the information out. And that is the necessary tool that I've been working with. I also have a kiosk in my office as it relates to the Guam buildup. But for this, the COVID-19, I want to share with you that the other idea I have is to extend a program out there that if anybody has any question or concern or cannot or feel bad and cannot fill out a form, call my office, email my office. I'm going to help walk it through. I had a family come up to me via the telephone and email saying, please, can you call me? I'm embarrassed. I don't know how to work this. I have 5 children. What can I do? I haven't done ABCD. I said, okay, help me help you. Give me all the documents you have, and I will help you facilitate it to the individual that needs to do the work for you so that you can be filed properly and then you can get the benefits, because the governor did extend the stimulus package till June 12th.
Right. Yeah.
That individual was in tears and saying, why do you care? I said, you have 5 children. If not for you and your significant other, then think of your children.
Mm-hmm.
I got that information delivered today by a relative, dropped at me. I just want to say I'm going to walk it through, just to see if I can help make that difference. I'm going to do it, and I again extend that information out. If there's any questions, I know I'm still getting questions on war claims. Just sometimes, Bree and Chris, somebody just needs to step up to the plate and say that, okay, if you're not understanding and you feel more comfortable, then I will open my door.
Well, Speaker,
thank you.
We're so glad that you shared your time. And remember, we'll do this weekly update every week. And just call in, let us know what you're working on, and it's definitely a lot. So I appreciate you reaching out, Speaker.
Thank you. Have a good day. God bless you, and God bless Guam.
Wash your hands, Kay.
Okay.
Sure
Tell
will.
Shirag wash his hands.
God bless you too.
Okay.
Take care.
Magamaste.
Bye.
9:31. Let's keep it on the phones here. We have Lynn. Lynn, are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right, so you had a question about revenue tax. Go for
Yes.
it. What do you need to know?
Okay, I what they asked to do. So I'm just trying to inquire. Is there any other way to contact them?
Is there another way to contact them?
Yes.
What way are you trying?
Yeah.
I'm trying email. I'm trying calls. I'm honestly.
Did you try smoke
I'm
signal?
as
Did
well.
you try sending a pigeon? Did you send a pigeon over?
The pigeon? No, I didn't try.
You
How
tried,
about the chicken?
How about 311? Did you try 311?
Honestly, I did have that issue. I did speak with you guys before.
Right.
I had that issue where I dial it from my home phone. I dialed it from my cell phone. I tried another person's cell phone, and it just hangs up on me.
When you call 311.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and
Okay,
what are the what are the numbers you're calling?
I'm calling 635-1840, 1841, 1842, everything.
Yeah, that's the right numbers.
But anyways, before I keep on going on, I would like to tell you and Miss Sabrina, I appreciate all your intel that you guys are keeping us updated with. I'm really thankful and grateful. Since this thing's been going on, I've been quarantining myself away from everyone, keeping myself safe. So I thank you guys very much again. But the only thing that I'm trying to get a hold of them is, we got the check already, but they misspelled the name. And, it's, that's the only thing what I'm trying to get a hold of them is to ask them, how do we go about that?
Man.
Oh, my goodness. Which check was it? Was it the local one or was it the federal one?
The federal, the
So
one that they're sending out to everybody.
So you got the 1,200 something?
Yeah, just 1,200 only.
Okay, and did you try going to cash the check?
Oh, no, I don't want, because they did the same thing when I filed my tax. They missed a letter only on my last name. So I had to go to DNV, and DNV told me to go to DOA, and then DOA fixed everything. Then I went to the bank. So I don't want to take
How
the
long
tax
did that take,
a lot of people.
ma'am?
Okay, but with this one, I
No,
went
how long
back-
did it take when you did that process with your tax refund?
It was actually not even half an hour, because just to go to DNV, DOA, and then bank.
Okay, but that wasn't during the COVID.
No, that wasn't. So it's a totally different story. But I did speak with a lady by the name of Linda last week, and she told me what to do. So I did do it, because she said this is different from filing your tax. So after that, I've been trying to contact them to check if they got the email. I've been trying to email them and all.
So the
That
emails
sucks,
that you've been getting, admin@reventax.guam.gov.
The one that she gave me to send is this one. I'm sorry, let me get to it.
Guam EIP.
Sent inbox.
We're getting a lot of comments here. Anybody?
name is,
Sorry, ma'am. Anybody in 311? If anybody working 311 is listening, can you just shoot me a message? Are you guys still operational? Because we're getting some comments that no one's answering at 311.
Okay, the email that they told me to email was lorinda.kakayan@revtax.guam.gov. She told me to send it to that one, and up to now, I still haven't received any feedback, any callback. I left all the things that she told me to do since Monday. As of this week, I still haven't got back anything.
Yeah, try, this is the other emails that we have. Guam, EIP, at revtax.guam.gov.
.gov, yes, even that one.
Okay.
I tried everything. You know, I know everybody is busy, like you and Chris. You guys are doing such a good job, and I'm sorry to take your time.
No, don't even call again. Anytime, all the time.
Something that I really was hoping to get so I can pay, you know, my utilities. It's going straight to Uncle Bill's. It's not going to my needs or what, even though I know I need some stuff. But I'd rather put it to the bills because without our power, water, and food-wise, you know, we won't be alive.
Ma'am, you know, you just said something that's true for a lot of people. We got this stimulus, but you're right, it's just going to bills. Because it came so late in the game that I'm under a mountain of debt. DB.
Yep, what can we do? That's life, right? All we can do is praise the Lord for blessing us with this. No offense, but it blessed us with this COVID-19 to let us all bond with each other.
Well, that's one way to look at it, ma'am. Thank you so much, Lynn.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chris and Miss Sabrina. I appreciate your help again. God bless and be safe.
We appreciate you appreciating our help, and, you know, we appreciate that.
If we get Daphne on the line, we'll try and see if she could provide some answers.
Thank you again so much. God bless. And
How did you not, punch the mailman or whatever when you got that check with a misspelled name?
My sibling is the one that delivered the mail because, like I said, I do not go anywhere.
Good for you.
You know, since they said this thing happened.
But it's over. We don't even test on Sunday.
I don't want to take the chances just to be on the safe side. Better safe than sorry.
I'm right there with you, ma'am.
Okay, I
Okay.
God bless and be safe.
Take care.
Okay, wash your hands. All right. Boy, that would just wait 2 months for a stimulus check and you get it and they misspell your name.
I know.
Oh, boy, that would just, I'll be storming down to give me the director. Man, Lynn, I don't know what to tell you. Good luck with that. What a bummer. 9:38. We're going to take a little break. We're back with more Containing COVID next, right here on Guam's favorite, I-94. Good morning.
Join us. Keeping you informed, KUAM News brings you Banking 671, brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, and Coast 360 Federal Credit Union. Together, we thrive.
KUAM News COVID-19 Takeover on I-94 FM is presented locally by Ambrose Inc.
With the new challenges we're all facing, First Hawaiian Bank wants to make sure you have access to your financial world. With FHB Online and our mobile app, we hope to make banking the least of your worries. Visit fhb.com/digital.
Be healthy. Be informed with ITD.
GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information.
Be healthy. Be informed with ITD.
Hey, good morning. I had a birthday shout out going out to Isadora Matagolay, 17 years old of Jotnia. That's coming from So Much Love, the family. Good morning, 944.
Happy birthday.
It's containing COVID. 18th day of May, P-Core 2. Not really sure what's going on press conference wise or anything. I'm not even sure what's going on. I mean, we know what's going on, okay? We just don't know as much of it as we like. So, I don't know. I spoke or texted Carlo Branch, the Adelup Policy Director, last week, and I said, hey, is there going to be a press conference on Monday? And he said, quote, that's the plan. So there is a plan.
Oh, great.
And we'll see again. As you know, they said when we did a story on why there aren't a lot of press conferences anymore, they said that they have shifted from crisis response to recovery. So that basically means fewer press conferences. Okay? 9:45. You know, as we always do at the end of the show, we like to end it on a good note. And we're going to do that right now and bring on very familiar face. She's actually a Teacher of the Year for the Guam Department of Education. Annalyn Paluga. Good morning, Annalyn.
Good morning, Chris. Happy day, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Of course. We wanted to bring you on because I saw a post on social media, and we're going to pop up these pictures here. So as Teacher of the Year, you get a cool little vehicle, and I saw the pictures, and you've basically been delivering grab-and-go meals for the Guam Department of Education to students who don't have transportation, students who, for whatever reason, obviously so many of our kids are living in poverty. But can you just take us back to the beginning? When did you decide that you were going to answer that call to get these meals out to people who really need it?
So once around March 23, what happened was I just went ahead and started connecting with my parents, connecting with my students, seeing how they're doing. I mean, usually a lot of the times we're always, as teachers, advocating for our kids and asking them how are they doing and their learning, in the classroom. And so with this pandemic, it definitely changed the scene of that, and it came to the part of just checking in on them socially and emotionally during this time. And I have noticed, and just to connect with them and to let them know, about information that's going on at the school, and if they knew about the grab-and-go meals. And majority of the parents that I did get in contact with mentioned that, they thought that that was a wonderful resource, but they didn't have, the resource, they didn't have the option of, or transportation to be able to get there. And so I went ahead and asked, would you like me to go ahead and deliver? And they said, it would be a blessing. So from there, we started to continue to do these deliveries. And we're actually going to be doing the delivery up until, the grab-and-go meals, and this coming Friday, May 22.
Right. We know there's an extension that they put in a request for the extension. But, Adeline, can you go back and tell us how many meals and how many different households have you been able to go to?
So there are about 25 meals that we deliver to my former and current students, and there are about 7 different families who we go to while practicing, a safe social distancing.
Right. And what's the response you get when they see that Teacher of the Year vehicle pull up there with something good to eat for the day?
To be honest, whether I have the title or not, to my parents, it's just a blessing. They don't really notice the car to begin with, but it's just being able to see their teacher come in. It does bring It does bring joy to the kids, and oftentimes, our culture, we're always wanting to, hug. That's something that, the kids, it's ingrained in kids, and so we have to always say, oh, stop, let's practice social distancing. And it's heartbreaking to see that, and I don't know how this is going to be, once school does, come along, but it is a blessing. And many of the times the kids are finally able to see that support from school, as well as, from their teachers in their own personal lives. I mean, not just finally, but, it's something that keeps them going. It gives them stability.
Right.
During times like these.
Let's talk about on your end, because I know you don't get to be Teacher of the Year unless you really, really care about your students. And in talking to a lot of teachers, they've been really fighting that disconnect that went on when we cut the classes. As they're reaching out to students, they're talking to students still. So on your end, how does it make you feel to be able to have the ability to reach out to former students, to students, and to have that lifeline open with them?
Yeah, for sure. I know that my story is just one among the many stories that a lot of teachers are heroes. Mine is just one story, and I know that we are always advocates for our students. Even during this time, I've seen many teachers connecting with them through Zoom, still continuing phone calls, and I can see that as teachers with Guam Department of Education, we have empathy, and empathy is really what helps our community move forward in a time where everything has stopped.
Well, Annalyn, that's why we wanted to bring you on and recognize the good work that you're doing, and to let you know that you are a COVID hero, Annalyn.
Just me, I also have to, thank GDOE for the grab-and-go meals. This really has been helping our community move forward as well as, Card Plus for the, allowing me to be able to use that card to deliver to my students. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you for having me.
Of course, Annalena. God bless you, okay?
Thanks, Annalyn.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Okay, wash your hands.
Okay.
All right. Bye. 9:51. There you go, Annalyn Palugat, our COVID hero for the day. We always try to end the show on a good note. So there you go.
Great story.
Yeah, and we're going to be getting word from Superintendent John Fernandez. We know that they put in the ask to extend the grab-and-go meals through the summer.
Thought it's a done deal.
And he said basically they're just waiting on a couple little things there. So
I think the governor, she signed the contract. So I think it's done. I mean, I don't know.
Okay. There you go. It's a done deal.
That's what it sounded like. I mean, that's what he said.
9:51, and I think that's about it. Bree.
That's about it.
That's it. I didn't eat dinner last night. Okay.
So you're hungry.
So I'm looking at a little grab and go for me. Thank you to Joe Sir again for handling our behind the scenes stuff. Also with Ken Sanity, and again to our viewers on KUAM TV 11, and also on we've got a audio stream Docomo Channel 10. Of course, there's a live stream KUAM.com and the KUAM news app. And again, a shout out to our awesome local artists who gave us another great Stay Home Live Local Fridays on a Friday. Bree, that was awesome.
Yeah. Who was on it again? It was Brandy. Ben
Friends with
Galta.
Instruments did a good one. Ben Galta did another great one. I know we just ended on a good note, but I really kind of had put this in the proper place in my head, but I wanted to offer our condolences here to a member of our KUAM family who sadly has passed on after a brave fight with cancer. Of course, just want to recognize Lenny Ramirez. I know we talk about Reverend Tax this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Lenny was one of the guys at Motor Carrier. He was actually my connect up at Reverend Tax, and so we definitely miss him. It all just happens so fast, as is always the case with cancer. You hear someone has it, then they go off island to get the treatment, and then, I mean, we just found out yesterday that he has passed on. So our condolences going out to his family, and of course his loved ones and everybody. And just know that our thoughts and prayers are definitely with you guys.
Len was definitely that voice literally in my ear right before the newscast would start. He would be the one. He worked in master control, and he would be the one cueing our guys in production to let us know when we would go on the air. And, it's 6 o'clock at night, so we always had this running joke with Len about, hamburgers, because he really liked hamburgers.
Yeah.
So we'd always be like, hamburger! We'd yell that, and I'd hear that in my ear all the time for how many years. So, yeah, I'm truly going to miss Len. I know we had a car wash for him a couple months ago before all of this craziness started. We raised money for him, and thank you for everybody that came through and donated money. And this year, today, which is the crazy thing, is we're actually going to be planning the Relay for Life. Yeah, a virtual relay.
And we just had Joe Rios on Friday on what would have been Relay for Life. Before the COVID hit. And Lenny used to always call me Barnett. You always just call me. And I come in here on Saturday morning on the way to drop my kids back, and he'd just always make this joke, and it was a hint. He'd always say, "Hey, where's breakfast? Next time, bring breakfast." So I started bringing him breakfast after like the third, fourth time. I'm like, "Where's breakfast?" So man, Lenny, great guy. Again, our condolences, and we're gonna leave you with I gotta play my late party, Savage K. And I mean, I know this is a real understatement, but I cannot stand cancer. I've lost so many people. We all have people close to us, people that we love, to this dreadful disease. So 9:55. Bree, good job today.
Good job, Chris.
And we'll leave you here with Savage K. It's Live Life Alive. Good advice. Thank you again to all of our viewers and listeners out there for all the support, and we'll see you tomorrow on Containing COVID. Guausi Chris, está adiós.
I just got the news today. Things will never be the same. Things will never be the way it was just the other day.